Chapter 826. After leaving the Triastria Pagoda, Lin Jun followed the mountain path and headed towards the peak where the heaven class was cultivating. On the way, he met some people who nodded at Lin Jun to express their goodwill. One must know that Lin Jun was no longer an ordinary person. He was the top new student in the heaven class and had a boundless future ahead of him. More importantly, no one dared to underestimate Lin Jun's strength anymore. Who would dare to provoke someone who could clear the 7th floor of the Triastria Pagoda and defeat an early-stage spirit reader, transformation stage spirit reader? When he passed by the alchemy room outside, Qian Tong saw Lin Jun and turned to enter the room. When he passed by the heaven class, Lin Jun saw machinery again. Machinery glanced at Lin Jun and then closed his eyes tightly, as if he didn't notice Lin Jun passing by. From their eyes, Lin Jun felt a trace of fear. These two people definitely wouldn't give up on taking revenge on him, but at the very least, they didn't dare to act rashly because they realized that Lin Jun, the World King, was a little strong. If they provoked Lin Jun, they wouldn't have a good ending. Of course, Lin Jun wouldn't let them go, but the time wasn't right. The most important thing now was to seize the time to increase his strength. Ever since he saw the early stage spirit reader transformation stage, Lin Jun felt that his vision had suddenly opened up and he was full of anticipation for the future. At the same time, he wasn't satisfied with his current strength. His realm was still too low. Walking along the mountain path, he soon arrived at the heaven class. The atmosphere of cultivation in the heaven class was very thick. There were about 60 to 70 people in the class. When the seniors saw Lin Jun, no one took the initiative to say anything. Most of them didn't even notice Lin Jun's arrival, as they were all immersed in their own cultivation. When the new students saw Lin Jun, they nodded slightly. When Lin Jun saw Dongfang Yu from the Great Han Empire, he even cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, senior brother Lin." The ranking of the students was based on their progress in the 33 Heavens Pagoda. Lin Jun was able to clear the 7th level, so he was ranked ahead of them. He was the #1 new student. Lin Jun also waved his hand at Dongfang Yu. "You're welcome. I'm still young, so you could just call me by my name." "Ha! Senior brother Lin is so approachable." Dongfang Yu smiled. Lin Jun walked over. Sun Yidao's gaze fell on Lin Jun. Although Sun Yidao also addressed Lin Jun as senior brother, there was still some unwillingness in his eyes. Lin Jun didn't say much. He walked forward and arrived in front of the Limitless Sword Technique's stone tablet. He hadn't comprehended this sword technique yet because the Limitless Sword Technique alone wasn't very powerful. At the very least, from Lin Jun's point of view, the myriad sword art he currently knew was not as powerful as the God's Tomb he had just learned. Sitting cross-legged in front of the stone tablet, Lin Jun began to study everything about the Limitless Sword art. The Limitless Sword Technique had a total of 4 moves, namely Forest, Abyss, Luo, and Prison. The Forest was called the Cold Forest. Abyss was called the Abyss. Luo was called Rakshasa. Prison was called Purgatory. The soul-locking platform sword technique he had learned from He Gu was called the Abyss. The sword technique in Fallen Star Lake was called the Cold Forest. The stone tablet he had obtained from Liberty City was called Rakshasa. The last move was called Purgatory. It was in the Twin Trees Garden, so Lin Jun couldn't come into contact with it at the moment. When these moves were executed individually, their power was probably between the Taiyuan sword technique's life, extinction, and God's Tomb. They were quite powerful, but they definitely weren't shocking. Moreover, these moves didn't have a sequence. Their power complemented each other. As long as he learned one more move, the power of the previous move would double. For example, Lin Jun had learned the Abyss sword technique. If he learned the Cold Forest as well, the power of any one of these 2 moves might be comparable to or even surpass God's Tomb. If he learned the Liberty City's Rakshasa, Lin Jun didn't dare to imagine how powerful these 3 moves would be when combined. Back then, He Gu had wanted to sneak into Fallen Star Lake because he had been attracted by the Senro sword technique. That was why he had lost his life. When he had learned the Forest sword technique, it had taken him 50 years to comprehend the stone tablet. He had spent half of his time in the Holy Land on the Senro sword technique, which was considered good. It was also because of this that very few people would spend a large amount of their precious time in the Holy Land to comprehend the stone tablet. Therefore, when Lin Jun arrived at the stone tablet, there was no one in front of it. Furthermore, the forest sword technique hadn't been signed. It was unknown who had left the stone tablet here. This was also relatively mysterious. Looking at the cold stone tablet in front of him and the Rakshasa stone tablet that had been permanently preserved in his dimensional universe, Lin Jun decided to comprehend the cold forest first. The Rakshasa stone tablet wouldn't disappear in the dimensional universe. Even if he left the Holy Land in the future, he could comprehend it anywhere else. It was best to learn the cold forest first. Haegu had spent 50 years comprehending the stone tablet. Lin Jun believed that he definitely wouldn't need that long. Just as he was about to start cultivating, someone in the dimensional universe suddenly called out to him. "Master, your good friend Michelle is calling you. Do you want to connect?" Connect. Lin Jun also wanted to know what had happened to Michelle. After connecting, Michelle's image appeared on the screen. Looking at the background, it seemed like he was outside the heaven class. "Senior Lin, I want to see you. Can you come out for a while?" Lin Jun was stunned for a moment. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that Michelle didn't participate in the 33 Heavens Pagoda Challenge. Now, he was automatically demoted to the Earth class. "You can't come in?" "Yes, these snobs. I only couldn't participate in the challenge due to my injuries. How dare they not let me enter the Heaven class territory? When I return to the Heaven class next year, I will definitely teach them a lesson." Lin Jun knew that he was talking about the odd job workers. He smiled and said, "All right, I'll come out now." After leaving the stone tablet, he saw Michelle standing outside angrily. In front of him were two odd job workers blocking his path. Seeing Lin Jun come out, the two odd job workers said awkwardly, "Senior Lin, it's not that we're unreasonable, but the Holy Land has its own rules. Senior Michelle is no longer a member of the Heaven class. He can't enter the Heaven class territory. We have no choice." Lin Jun waved his hand and said to Michelle, "Old brother, why bother with these small matters? Let's go down the mountain and have a drink." Michelle was just feeling a little upset. Of course, he wouldn't break the Holy Land's rules. He snorted twice and followed Lin Jun down the mountain. After a while, they arrived at the foot of the mountain. There were tens of thousands of people on Star Picking Island. It was equivalent to a small town. There were a few taverns. After finding a quiet place, the two of them sat down. "Lin Jun, I won't call you Senior Lin. Let's just call you by your name." "Huh, that's the best. All right, I know you're rich. You're a level 7 alchemist. That's impressive. So, I won't stand on ceremony with these dishes." Lin Jun raised his hand and signaled Michelle to do as he pleased. How much could a meal cost? Michelle didn't stand on ceremony. The first dish was steamed golden dolphin. The second dish was braised wyvern wing. After the two main dishes were served, a series of side dishes and good wine were served. Soon, the table was filled to the brim. Michelle raised his wine cup and said to Lin Jun, "Lin Jun, I'd like to thank you for lending me your wine. If it wasn't for you, I would have become the dung of those death beetles. I can't thank you enough. Cheers." He raised his head and downed a cup of wine worth tens of thousands. Lin Jun also downed a cup. "You don't have to thank me. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't leave you in the lurch. But I'm curious. How did you end up in such a sorry state?" Michelle said angrily, "Don't mention it. I originally teamed up with my friends and went to the endless sea of stars to look for a star, a graveyard star." Graveyard star? It was Lin Jun's first time hearing such a term. Yes, it's the graveyard star. A demigod was buried on that star. We were planning to find his grave, but we didn't expect to meet a few light angels when we found the place after so much effort. Michelle drank another cup. The light angels are the most despicable and hypocritical race. They hypocritically said that they would join us in the exploration and split the loot equally. We agreed. They were sincere enough before, and they even saved the life of one of our friends. That's how they won our trust. But we didn't expect them to ambush us when we were near the tomb. A few of my friends died in there. I finally managed to hide in a tomb, but they attracted the death beetles. They wanted to eat me alive. I had no choice but to use a wormhole egg that I had kept for many years to escape from the demigod tomb. However, I was severely injured, and many death beetles followed me into the wormhole egg. If it wasn't for you, I would have been dead. At this point, Michelle smiled, but they didn't get any benefits. I took the key to the tomb. If they want to open the door to the tomb, they can only do it through a decryption method. They won't be able to enter for at least 10 years. Lin Jun didn't care much about fighting, but he was interested when he heard about the demigod tomb. Demigod? That's right, a demigod. A demigod is someone who failed to break through to the divine stone realm. These people shattered most of their divine stones to preserve their lives. They will never have any hope of becoming a divinity, but they are still terrifyingly strong. It is said that the strongest powerhouse below a divinity is a demigod. Once a demigod reaches the demigod realm, they can rampage through the primordial world. After Michelle finished speaking, she mysteriously said, "Brother, do you want to go out with me when you have a chance? We can go back later. As long as we can open the demigod tomb, I don't dare to say anything else, but you will definitely get a lot of divine stones." Lin Jun thought for a moment. I can't do that for now. Right now, my focus is on cultivation. Chapter 8:27. Lin Jun and Michelle talked for a long time. In the end, Lin Jun agreed that she would follow Michelle to the demigod's tomb to take a look after her cultivation. The two drank until the sky turned dark. In the end, Michelle was drunk. He patted Lin Jun's shoulder and said, "Brother, I think you're amazing. I didn't participate in the challenge this time, but I'm not jealous of you. Let's drink together and get rich together. If anyone dares to challenge you, tell me, and I'll kill them for you." Lin Jun laughed and said, "Brother, don't be so barbaric. Hey, don't think of me as a good person. Do you know what I am? I'm a fallen angel." What is a fallen angel? It's someone who has turned into a demon. It's someone who has turned evil. I'm not a good person. I don't want to be a good person, but I don't have anything good to give you. I got this from the tomb. Take it and play with it. Michelle handed a disc to Lin Jun. "What's this?" Lin Jun asked. This is a good thing. It's called the astrolabe. It can observe all the changes in the huge celestial bodies within 1,000,000 light years. For example, if a supernova explodes, a wormhole appears, or a black hole appears, or even if a huge energy body approaches, you can find clues on the astrolabe. Although I don't know what it can be used for, it was buried very well in the tomb. It should be useful. Brother will give it to you. Lin Jun accepted the astrolabe. Since it was Michelle's kind intention, it would be rude if he didn't accept it, especially since Michelle said that the astrolabe could see if there was a black hole. This was very useful to Lin Jun. Lin Jun's black hole wasn't the final form. It still needed to evolve. If he could evolve the black hole, Lin Jun's strength would undoubtedly increase greatly. Also, if there was an energy body approaching, a powerful enemy would also be an energy body. This was like a portable radar. After accepting the astrolabe, Lin Jun felt that good deeds would be rewarded. They drank until late at night before Michelle left. He did not go to the Earth class to cultivate, but instead went back to rest and recuperate. He told Lin Jun that he would definitely return to the heavenly class in a year's time and ruthlessly slap the faces of those who looked down on him. Lin Jun knew that Michelle wasn't bragging. He really did have the ability. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't participate, Lin Jun even suspected that he wouldn't be able to get first place. After returning to the day's shift, Lin Jun released his astral powers slightly to dissolve the alcohol. He was going to officially start cultivating. The days in the Holy Land were long and boring. The only thing that could stimulate one's nerves was a certain someone breaking through a certain level of the 33 Heavens Pagoda. Compared to the freshmen, the senior students had better grades. For example, in Lin Jun's previous cohort, someone had already passed through the 7th level. In the previous 3 cohort, there were people who had passed through the 8th and 9th levels. However, it was very difficult to pass the 10th level. If one didn't break through to the spiritual force transformation stage, it was basically impossible to pass. It was rare for someone to surpass the 3-flower stage and enter the spiritual force transformation stage in the Holy Land. At the very least, there weren't any in the last few classes. Only the heaven and earth classes had a few spiritual force transformation stage cultivators. After Lin Jun and Michelle finished drinking, they returned to the stone tablet of the limitless sword technique and began a long period of cultivation. The limitless sword technique was a stone tablet filled with sword scars. There were no words on it. The person who set up the stone tablet first set it up and then used his sword on it to leave sword scars. Later on, people could use the sword scars to comprehend the sword scars. The entire stone tablet was filled with sword scars. Some were deep, some were shallow, some were just scratches, and some were just simple stabs that left an undetectable mark. In order to comprehend the sword technique, one had to figure out the order of the person who carved the tablet. This was definitely not an easy task, because it wasn't just a few strokes, but thousands of strokes. It was a very difficult process to determine where the first stroke was. One had to try out the execution process of each stroke one by one. Only the one that made one feel the most comfortable could be the correct one. After successfully testing the first stroke, the second stroke was even more difficult. It had to be executed consecutively. What about the 10th stroke? The 100th stroke? Executing consecutively, slowly testing, and simulating the movements. This process was extremely complicated and contained millions of changes. If one didn't have a certain level of talent, they would never be able to comprehend the sword technique. It wasn't that no one had tried the limitless sword technique, but they all felt that it was too difficult. Moreover, they couldn't get a chance to comprehend the other parts and gave up. Only someone like Lin Jun, who had the ability to devour, dared to try the limitless sword technique. He had already learned the abyss of Blackbone, the coldness here, and the Rakshasa of the dimensional universe. If he had the chance to learn the purgatory of the Twin Trees Garden, Lin Jun would have learned the full set of the limitless sword technique. The power of this sword technique was absolutely above Landis's spear skills. In fact, it was much stronger. Lin Ming's avatar began a long period of meditation. As for his main body, he also began to cultivate in his inner world. Compared to his avatar's meditation, his main body's cultivation process was much richer. Lin Jun began to refine pills in his inner world. After preparing the cauldron, Lin Jun took out all the medicinal ingredients he had and started to refine cauldron after cauldron of pills. What he was refining now was the essence gathering powder for the longevity realm, as well as the frost mist pill that could resolve the side effects of pills. Lin Jun was now a 9th level world king. He was only a single step away from immortality. If he could cross this threshold, his strength would surely rise dramatically. Although Lin Jun had defeated a divine while Transformation Master on the 7th floor of the 33 Heavens Pagoda, he was well aware that he was far from being a match for a divine while Transformation Master. Even the peak 3 Flower Heaven Lord wouldn't be easy for him to deal with. At the very least, if he didn't borrow the strength of his avatar, his main body wouldn't be able to defeat the Heaven Lord alone. Only by entering longevity would Lin Jun be able to show disdain for the other 3 flower martial artists and have a chance of resisting a divine while Transformation Master. Thus, advancing to longevity was the most crucial point. Lin Jun began to prepare pills for the longevity realm. Essence Gathering Powder, Frost Mist Pill. Besides these 2 pills, Lin Jun also needed the inner world's nourishing pill as well as mental strength pills. In Lin Jun's inner world's ominous star map, he was still missing the Rahu star and Ketus star, the 2 largest ominous stars. Lin Jun didn't dare to think about the Rahu star for now, but he had to light up the Ketus star. According to Lin Jun's normal cultivation speed, it would take him several hundred years to light up the Ketus star. But he had the black hole beast swallowing ability, allowing him to cultivate with ease. Even so, Lin Jun wasn't sure if he could light up the Ketus star within 10 years. In his 2nd year in the Holy Land, Lin Jun's realm reached the peak of the World King realm. But he didn't feel the overflowing star force that he needed to make a breakthrough. Moreover, he hadn't completely digested the medicinal properties. In this year, Lin Jun grasped about 1/3 of the limitless sword art. He also recovered the 2nd strand of Annihilation Thunder. In his 3rd year in the Holy Land, Lin Jun's realm was still at the peak of the World King realm. His star force seemed to have reached its peak and didn't continue to grow. But he still didn't feel any signs of a breakthrough. He had comprehended about 2/5 of the limitless sword art. This was because the further he went, the more changes there would be. Even though Lin Jun's talent was extremely high, it was impossible for him to grasp it too quickly. In this year, his annihilation thunder had finally recovered. In his 4th year in the Holy Land, the medicinal properties in Lin Jun's body were completely dissolved. He could swallow pills to break through to the immortal realm. But Lin Jun didn't do so. After so many perfect breakthroughs, Lin Jun already had an obsession in his heart. If he didn't reach the optimal state, he wouldn't easily make a breakthrough. In this year, Lin Jun mainly cultivated his soul force. After 3 years of bitter cultivation, his soul force had reached 40% of the diamond level. He could be considered to have entered the middle diamond level. This was mainly due to the effects of pills. Because he hadn't reached the immortal realm, Lin Jun was able to swallow these inner-world nourishing pills and soul force pills without any scruples. His progress could only be described as lightning fast. In this year, Lin Jun had comprehended half of the limitless sword art. In his 5th year in the Holy Land, Lin Jun still felt that he hadn't reached his optimal state. But he wasn't anxious. Cultivation was an incomparably long process to begin with. In this year, his comprehension of the limitless sword art came to a halt. Previously, he had completed half of it. This year, he hadn't completed 3/5 of it. He had also finished refining all the pills. Lin Jun had also finished refining all the medicinal ingredients he had stored. Because his main body didn't need to meditate often, Lin Jun had some time to continue comprehending the shadowless steps. In his 6th year, Lin Jun finally felt that his condition was nearing the peak. But he was still lacking a little. He wasn't in a hurry to make a breakthrough. Since he had decided to make a breakthrough, he had to be fully prepared. In this year, Lin Jun mainly focused on nourishing his inner world. The energy in his inner world was becoming more and more abundant. It seemed that the day of illuminating Ketu wasn't too far away. He had finally completed 3/5 of the limitless sword art. He had also successfully comprehended the 6th diagram of the shadowless steps. After learning this set of footwork, Lin Jun's movement technique had already reached the acme of perfection. If he used this movement technique in battle, Lin Jun believed that when he returned to the 8th floor of the 33 Heavens Pagoda, he wouldn't be so easily killed by the Guardians. In his 7th year, Lin Jun finally felt that his star power was no longer increasing. His star power was close to saturation. His mental power had reached 50% of the diamond rank. However, he was still waiting. He was waiting for the nourishing effect of his inner world. In his 8th year, Lin Jun had comprehended 80% of the limitless sword art. He felt that the nourishing effect of his inner world had also reached its peak. The day of illuminating the star of Ketu was close at hand. But in his heart, he still felt that his cultivation was lacking something. Chapter 828. This Stellaris disk was very magical. The star chart on it was like an electronic map on Earth that could be enlarged or shrunk. With a gentle pull of 2 fingers, one could actually see the specific situation of a certain part of the starry sky. In the eyes of ordinary humans, the starry sky seemed to be eternal and unchanging. In the eyes of martial artists, most of the time was the same. However, humans did not have a long lifespan to wait for a star to change, but martial artists did. This Stellaris disk had been in Lin Jun's hands for 7 years, and finally, there was a change for the first time. In the distant starry sky, a small pattern of a black hole flickered. It looked like a small black whirlwind. The formation of a black hole could be due to the collapse of a star after it exploded. It could also be due to some other reasons that could not be determined. For example, the energy released by a powerful martial artist in a life and death situation could be comparable to the explosion of a planet. When Lin Jun saw this black hole, he had already decided to go. A black hole was also a type of energy. Devouring also required powerful energy, growth, and evolution. The way a black hole evolved was to devour other black holes. Black holes were also divided into different grades. The common black hole was a stellar-level black hole, which refer to the black hole formed by the collapse of space after a star exploded. Above the stellar level, there were giant star-level black holes. Giant star-level black holes refer to the explosion of more than one star, forming a supermassive space collapse. Regardless of whether it was the gravitational force of a naked singularity or the radiation area, they were all greater. Above the giant star level, there were collapsed black holes in the galactic stage. The extent of their expansion would reach a galaxy or even greater. They would devour everything within millions or tens of millions of light years, forming a true land of death. Regardless of technology or martial strength, this kind of black hole was helpless against them. Unless one knew in advance and escaped before they were born, no one would be spared when they appeared. The only thing that could destroy a black hole was time. In the eternal river of time, black holes also had life. When they expanded to the limit, all the celestial bodies and energy in the surroundings would become a vacuum. Naked singularities would lose their power source and slowly evolve into white holes. They would age and collapse in the universe. After the collapse, dark matter and dark energy would re-enter this space. It was like the grass on the grassland. When spring arrived, a new season would begin. The black hole in Lin Zhun's Dantian was considered a stellar-level black hole. However, it could not devour and grow freely. It was controlled by Lin Zhun. As Lin Zhun's natal skill, he also wanted to expand the black hole. After seeing this black hole, Lin Zhun decided to set off. His strength had reached the point of overflowing. As long as he lit up Ketu's star and consumed the elixir, he would definitely enter immortality. But he felt that he was still lacking something. At present, it would appear that if he could make the black hole evolve as well when he entered the longevity stage, that would truly be perfect. His progress in comprehending the myriad sword technique was getting slower and slower. Although he had already completed about 80% of it, the last 20% was the most difficult part. It was impossible for him to succeed in comprehending it within 10 years. However, Lin Zhun was not in a hurry. If 10 years were not enough, 20 years would be enough for him to succeed. After tidying up, Lin Zhun stood up. B. Lin Zhun, what do you think? Do you agree to consider my suggestion? Let's go to the Tomb Star. There are many experts buried there. Let's go and make a fortune from the dead. In the second year after Michelle and Lin Zhun said that he would return to the heavenly class, he really did return. Furthermore, his results were outstanding. He managed to clear the 7th level and even managed to complete 50% of the 8th level. But Lin Zhun smiled. I will go, but you have to wait for me to come back. Where are you going? I'm going out for a stroll. Lin Zhun patted his clothes and said goodbye to Michelle. Then he told Jean Nuo in the dimensional universe that he was going out. Lin Zhun, I don't object to you going out, but remember to ensure your safety. Don't let anything happen to you. You are very important to our sacred land. Lin Zhun knew what Jean Nuo was thinking. He immediately patted his chest and promised that nothing would happen to him. Jean Nuo hesitated for a moment. Then he said, Your realm is about to break through, right? Lin Zhun smiled. Jean Nuo was more concerned about his own breakthroughs. At the very least, he wouldn't be in such a hurry to reach the immortal realm. This was because a world king had a limited lifespan. If he couldn't cross the threshold of a mortal realm, then he definitely wouldn't have any great achievements. Fifth senior brother, don't worry. I can break through at any time. I'm just waiting for the best time. Okay, then you can go out. Remember to come back early. 2 years later, the freshmen will enter the sacred land, and the seniors will compete. There are many things that you should do here. After Lin Zhun agreed, he got up and left the stone tablet area. He began to go down the mountain. When he passed by the Earth class, Lin Zhun saw Machinery again. Machinery had been practicing very hard in the past few years. This guy had lost his body and almost had no human emotions. He used every second of his time. He was as accurate as a machine. Instead, he stood out in the profound class and became a student of the Earth class. Lin Zhun saw Machinery, and Machinery also saw Lin Zhun. The two people looked at each other. Machinery's eyes were emotionless, cold, and ruthless, just like a machine. Lin Zhun walked past the Earth class, but he did not relax his vigilance. He still had to be careful of machinery. At the foot of the mountain, Lin Jun saw Qian Tong again when he passed by the alchemy room. Qian Tong looked at Lin Jun and smiled. Lin Jun, long time no see. 7 or 8 years have passed, and you're still a world king. This realm is not good. Sooner or later, you'll be surpassed by others in the sacred land. If your enemies see you, they might come to you for revenge and kill you. Lin Jun also laughed. There are a lot of people who care about my realm. But I can tell you, if anyone wants revenge, they can come. Let's see if I will pinch their balls out. You unbearably vulgar fellow. Qian Tong was so angry that he felt like he was about to emit smoke. Lin Jun ignored him and walked out of Picking Stars Island. Then, he stepped on the dolphin and went into the water. Qian Tong watched Lin Jun leave with hatred in his eyes. Just as he was about to make a move, he saw machinery walking down mountain. Qian Tong's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to kill Lin Jun, but so did machinery. If machinery was going to make a move, there was no need for him to take action. He didn't want to be the scapegoat if he failed. Although Jean Nuo didn't say much about the previous incident, it doubled Qian Tong's daily workload. He had to hand over many saint-level pills to the sacred land, which made him miserable. Therefore, Qian Tong had long decided that he would either not make a move, or once he made a move, he would kill in one strike. He would never participate with others. Since machinery had gone, he would just watch the show. Mr. Bamboo Mountain, I have decided to agree to your request. Please help me now. Machinery was communicating with someone in the dimensional universe. This martial artist was dressed in loose clothes with a long saber hanging from his waist. He wore wooden clogs, his hair was tied up high, and his eyes were cold. Are you sure you have a way to bring me into the Fallen Star Lake sacred land? The martial artist named Bamboo Mountain asked. Yes, I'm not a life form of flesh and blood now. My left eye is actually a small storage space. When the time comes, you can enter my left eye and not come out. You can hide from the guards and enter the stone tablet area. When the time comes, I will guide you to whatever you want to comprehend. Okay, then it's settled. As long as you can bring me into the Fallen Star Lake, I will deal with Lin Jun. Mr. Bamboo Mountain, I must remind you in advance that Lin Jun defeated an early-stage Spirit Reader Transformation Realm Spirit Master on the 7th floor of the Sacred Land. Moreover, that was 7 years ago. Idiot! Bamboo Mountain waved his finger. Is 7 years worth mentioning? Moreover, I know the 33 Heavens Pagoda better than you. The guardian of the 7th floor has a huge drawback. He can't represent the strength of a Spirit Reader Transformation Realm Spirit Master. When I deal with Lin Jun, you will know what a true Spirit Reader Transformation Realm Spirit Master is. Machinery wasn't angry at all after being scolded. He wasn't on the same level as the other party. Moreover, he had already cut off all means of retreat. He wouldn't rest until he got rid of Lin Jun. For this, he was willing to betray the sacred land. After Lin Jun left the sacred land, he arrived at the Great Qin Empire through a teleportation gate. Then, he used a teleportation array to enter the endless sea of stars. The location he teleported to was the outpost of the Great Qin Empire's journey to the endless sea of stars, which was also the border area. There was a buffer zone between the primordial realm and the endless sea of stars. The distance between the surface and the starry sky was 1,000 light years. At the end of this 1,000 light years, there was a buffer zone of about 10,000 light years. This buffer zone was the border between the two. It was formed after many battles between the surface and the endless sea of stars. It was an area jointly managed by both sides. This area was vast and sparsely populated, but it was dotted with teleportation formations. The people on the ground of the primordial realm were basically safe here, but once they passed this buffer zone, it would become a forbidden zone for the people on the ground. The brutal races of the endless sea of stars were very hostile to people from the surface. Entering recklessly would be extremely dangerous. Fortunately, the place Lin Jun was heading to wasn't beyond the buffer zone. Therefore, he didn't have to go deep into the endless sea of stars. He took the teleportation array to the first stop. In front of him was the vast starry sky. It was impossible to see the situation on the surface from 1,000 light-years away. When the teleportation array guard saw that it was Lin Jun who was teleporting, he didn't dare to say anything. His identity as a disciple of the Sacred Lands Heaven class allowed him to use teleportation arrays for free in many countries. Ignoring the trembling teleportation array guard, Lin Jun teleported again. After a few consecutive teleportations, he was already close to the area where the black hole was. Jialing, let's go. Chapter 829. Galloping in the starry sky was a very pleasant thing. Watching the stars dance and feeling the wonders of the universe was a different experience. Lin Jun held the astrolabe in his hand and looked at the black hole region that was getting closer and closer. In fact, there was no need for the astrolabe anymore. With the black hole beast's senses, Lin Jun could already clearly feel the terrifying aura ahead. As he got closer and closer to the black hole region, the black hole's aura kept expanding. The two were getting closer and closer. Lin Jun could even feel the black hole in his body emitting waves. After galloping for a while, Lin Jun gently grabbed Jiuling's mane and stopped in his tracks. Driving the 9 spirits to turn around, Lin Jun turned around to take a look. In the distance, there was a huge snake that was hundreds of meters long. The snake had 9 heads and was very ferocious and terrifying. There were 2 people on the snake's body. One was a machine, and the other was a martial artist that Lin Jun did not recognize. He was at the early stage of the spiritual force transformation. Seeing Lin Jun turn around, the machine let out a metallic laugh. Hee hee. Lin Jun, you're quite good at choosing a place to bury yourself. The scenery here is beautiful and the view is wide. It's perfect for your burial. Machine, it must have been hard on you to find a spiritual force transformation expert to deal with me. The price must have been high, right? You don't have to worry about that. How can a dying man have so much to say? Saying that, the machine turned to the man riding on the snake's neck and said, Mr. Zhu Shan, it's up to you. Get down first. Don't be a hindrance here. Take Shan did not mince his words towards the machinery and directly chased it away. Wait for me here. I'll kill Lin Jun, and we'll return to the Holy Land immediately. But Mr. Zhu Shan, you better be careful. That Lin Jun has many tricks up his sleeve. I'm worried about you. What if, What are you worried about? Strength determines everything between martial artists. How can I be tricked by him? Seeing that the machine was about to say something, Zhu Shan remembered that he still needed him to bring him into the Holy Land. He simply said, Okay. You're just worried that no one will avenge you if I die. Don't forget where you are. This is the buffer zone between the primordial realm and the endless sea of stars. If anything happens to me here, you have other ways to take revenge. As he spoke, Bamboo Mountain threw a small disc to Machine. This disc is used to ridicule and insult the people of the Emperor race. As long as you use the dimensional universe to broadcast it, the people around you will receive the information in the disc. By then, all the races in the endless sea of stars will be attracted over. As long as a few experts are attracted over, Lin Jun will be dead for sure. Of course, you who broadcast the information will also be dead for sure, because they will kill all the races on the ground of the primordial realm that they see. The robot took the disc in a daze. You mean, we'll perish together? And everyone. After saying that, Take-Shan ignored the dumbfounded machine and urged the Hydra to rush towards Lin Jun. Master, do you want to fight? Jiuling shook her head. She seemed to be very interested in the 9-headed snake. No, don't fight for now. I have a better solution than fighting. Keep running. Stop when I tell you to stop. Jiuling immediately spread her legs and continued to move forward quickly. Her target was the black hole. Except for Lin Jun, no one else could sense the black hole. Without the astrolabe and the black hole's power in their bodies, they couldn't sense the danger in the distance. Lin Jun ran in front, and the martial artist behind him chased. They were like 2 streams of light moving quickly in space. Lin Jun didn't need the astrolabe. He could clearly sense that the edge of the black hole was right in front of him. Jiuling, when I tell you to stop, immediately control the opponent's 9-headed snake. Don't let it turn around and escape. Can you do that? Master, don't worry. I was born to restrain this nine-headed snake. This thing is a great supplement. Jiuling's eyes lit up. He could clearly feel the surging power of qi and blood on the nine-headed snake. He couldn't wait to eat the other party. Okay, then get ready. I'll bring you into the inner world in a while. You can enjoy yourself inside. But remember, when the black hole appears, don't be afraid. Hearing the black hole, Jiuling was stunned for a moment and instinctively wanted to run away. But when he remembered that Lin Zhen's body was a black hole beast, he didn't have anything to worry about and nodded. Get ready. 3. Turn around. The two people who were running for their lives turned around at the same time and suddenly faced Zhu Shan and the nine-headed snake who were chasing them. Ha ha ha. You can't escape. Prepare to die. Before Zhu Shan finished speaking, Lin Zhen suddenly shrouded them with a gravitational force. The gravitational force was condensed into a line by Lin Zhen and locked onto Zhu Shan. The 9 spirits, on the other hand, let out a furious roar. 9 heads appeared in the air and fiercely rushed out, biting down on the 9 necks of the Hydra. The 9-headed snake instinctively rolled back and wanted to bite the 9-headed lion. The two monsters began to compete in the air and couldn't be separated for a while. Zhu Shan imagined countless reactions from Lin Zhen, whether to fight or escape. But he didn't expect Lin Zhen to use gravitational force to shroud him. At this moment, his spiritual sense transformation alerted him. If something was abnormal, then it was a demon. This wasn't right. He instinctively wanted to break free, but Lin Zhen had planned for a long time. How could he give him a chance? The gravitational force was colorless and formless and couldn't be interrupted. It was impossible for the other party to break free in a short time. The scales on his body were gilded. Lotus flowers bloomed. He activated his spiritual force shield and used all the defensive means he could use to pull Zhu Shan back and not let him escape. At this time, a black cloud that was 1,000,000 times faster than the black cloud spread from the end of his vision. Black hole! Zhu Shan let out a hoarse roar, his heart filled with despair. This Lin Zhen was too cunning. He had actually lured him to the edge of the black hole. He was planning to perish together with him. You couldn't see something like a black hole. Once you saw it, you couldn't escape. This was because a black hole could devour everything in sight. Even light was no exception. So when Lin Zhen and Zhu Shan saw the black hole's gravitational force was already nearby. It directly pulled the two entangled people into the depths of the black hole. Lin Zhen released his own black hole aura and blocked the pull of the black hole. He put Jiuling and the 9-headed snake into his inner world. As long as Lin Zhen didn't die, everything in his inner world was safe. After putting away Jiuling, Lin Zhen relaxed his body and fell into the depths of the black hole. Zhu Shan was unlucky. He didn't have Lin Zhen's black hole aura to protect him. Facing the black hole's death ripples, he could only rely on his own star energy to resist. Even if he was a divine telekinesis transformation martial artist, he couldn't fight against a supernatural power like a black hole. More than 100 million star energy was consumed in a short time. When the star energy protecting his body was completely drained, his body collapsed. The infinite compression in the black hole could compress a planet into a steel ball. A person like Zhu Shan couldn't even be considered a speck of dust. He was completely decomposed and vaporized by the black hole and disappeared without a trace. Lin Zhen closed his eyes and revealed a smile. Many times, strength alone was useless. When a person didn't reach the invincible realm but thought he was invincible, he wasn't far from death. His body spun and moved at the speed of light into the depths of the black hole. This black hole was a stellar-level black hole. It was stronger than the black hole Lin Zhen encountered at the Sagittarius Heavenly Gate. Stellar-level black holes were also divided into strong and weak ones. Black holes were irresistible to others, but Lin Zhen's body released a faint layer of light. He wasn't affected by the black hole's death ripples and quickly rushed into the depths. About 10 minutes later, Lin Zhen arrived at the core of the black hole. This was a distorted space-time, a naked singularity. The naked singularity wanted to devour and decompose Lin Zhen, and Lin Zhen had the same plan. When he opened his mouth, The black hole in Lin Jun's body also appeared. Just a kilometer away, Lin Jun's black hole wanted to devour the naked singularity. What would happen when a black hole met another black hole? It would either devour the black hole, or the black hole would devour the black hole. Then, it would evolve into an even more powerful giant black hole. The power of the black hole was released, and another black hole was formed inside the black hole. The two opposing but similar forces collided and formed time and space. All matter was distorted and grotesque. The black hole stopped expanding outward, and its power flowed back. It began to support the devouring of the naked singularity in Lin Jun. Lin Jun wasn't someone to be trifled with either. He had already experienced it once. The black hole was just a little bigger, but its essence was the same. As long as he could hold on until the power of the black hole disappeared, it would be enough. His goal was very clear. He wanted to devour the naked singularity. When the naked singularity disappeared, the distortion of space-time would stop, and his devouring would succeed. In order to avoid being devoured, the naked singularity kept withdrawing the power of the black hole. Lin Jun had no choice but to devour the energy. As long as Lin Jun's devouring power was saturated and did not devour the naked singularity, the naked singularity would devour Lin Jun's black hole. After the two black holes fused, they might become a giant black hole. However, no one knew if there would be other changes. Lin Jun was devouring while the black hole was injecting. But no matter which side failed, they would completely perish. From the moment the stalemate began, the black hole stopped expanding and began to decline. All the power began to frantically pour into Lin Jun's black hole. Lin Jun felt the power in his body begin to skyrocket. His star power was about to break through the barrier and enter the immortal stage. The star of K2 in his dantian kept flashing as if it was about to be lit up. Slower, slower. I always felt that I was lacking something before the breakthrough. So this is the reason. Since I'm going to break through, let's break through more fiercely. Chapter 830. Under Zhu Shan's request, machinery ran behind a large meteorite in the distance and waited for the result of their battle. However, when he saw the death ripples of the black hole in the distance spreading over and swallowing Lin Jun and Zhu Shan together, machinery almost peed his pants. Of course, he was a metal machine, so he could no longer pee. Machinery immediately turned around and fled. However, since he saw the black hole, he could forget about escaping. Fortunately, the meteorite blocked it and machinery entered the range of the black hole's death ripples a little later. However, he was already in despair. There was no difference whether it was earlier or later. His star power was exhausted and he would die. However, just as machinery was about to give up resisting, a miracle happened. For some reason, the roaring black hole stopped. The death ripples seemed to have suddenly lost their power and quickly retreated. Machinery, who had survived the disaster, tried to call Zhu Shan, but there was no news from him. He was probably in trouble. Machinery ran for his life in a panic. After running for a while, he saw the shrinking black hole and the unwillingness in his heart emerged again. Why should I run? This black hole has such a strange situation. It must be Lin Jun's doing. He is no match for Zhu Shan in a head-on battle. He might have borrowed the power of the black hole to kill the enemy. Others will definitely die in the black hole, but Lin Jun won't because he's a black hole beast. My son is already dead. I can't have another son. Lin Jun saw me with Zhu Shan just now. When he returns to the Holy Land, he will definitely tell Jean Nua about this. No, he might tell Jean Nua through the dimensional universe now. When I return to the Holy Land, I will definitely suffer. I can't go back. Machinery quickly analyzed the situation. If Lin Jun was in the Earth class, he still had the confidence to compete with Lin Jun. However, ever since Lin Jun won the first place among the freshmen, Machinery no longer had the thought of competing with Lin Jun. Obviously, Jean Nua valued Lin Jun more. I have no way out. Since that's the case, I might as well go all the way. Lin Jun, I'm a person without a future. What else do I care about? Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. The machine's eyes flashed with madness. It took out the disk that Taekshan had given it and started playing it through the artificial intelligence. He believed that this was a buffer zone. It was impossible for there to only be people from the surface of the primordial realm here. There would also be races from the endless sea of stars. As for the races that dared to enter the buffer zone, their strength was definitely extraordinary. As long as he lured those people over, he and Lin Jun would both die. This was the final madness of a machine. Lin Jun was now facing the most important breakthrough of his life. 100 people would have 100 different personalities. Some people had strong willpower to climb to the peak, but such people were few and far between. The vast majority of people had lower aspirations. However, there was a process that everyone was looking forward to, and that was the longevity realm. As long as one was not killed by others, it was basically equivalent to having eternal life. A martial artist's goal in life was nothing more than longevity. As long as they could reach the longevity realm, most martial artists would choose to start enjoying life. They would build their own longevity temple and settle down in various places in the primordial realm. Then, they would enjoy the incense offerings of others. As long as they did not squander unscrupulously, they would have endless money to spend. They would either hide in the streets and enjoy life, or start a new life based on the interests and hobbies that they had to suppress in order to learn martial arts. Some people became poets, some became calligraphers, and some became painters. There were all kinds of hobbyists and enthusiasts. Because they had a lot of time to squander, they created amazing results in various fields. It could be said that many celebrities in the primordial realm were immortals. There were a few most important hurdles in a martial artist's cultivation. One was the entry stage. It determined whether you had the aptitude to become a martial artist. This was the most crucial step. The other was the Star Realm stage. Whether you could enter the Star Realm from the God of War was also very important. It determined how far you could go in the future. Of course, these two stages did not exist in the primordial realm. This was because a baby in the primordial realm would have a star core in his body when he was born. There was also the black hole stage. Whether you could cross the black hole stage and enter the nebula stage was a tribulation for martial artists. If you could pass the black hole stage, you could enjoy 10,000 years of life. If you couldn't, you would turn into ashes. Then there was longevity. This was the ultimate dream of most martial artists. It was also one of Lin Jun's dreams. However, it was only one of them. Lin Jun had higher goals. He was one of the very few people with extremely strong wills. Now that the day had finally arrived, Lin Jun couldn't help but feel excited. Only after passing longevity would one have the right to pursue the peak. If he couldn't, he would not even have the right to pursue it. Longevity realm, here I come. Not only do I want to become immortal, but I want to become the most powerful immortal. With the power of the black hole surging in, Lin Jun's strength was skyrocketing. At this moment, he was suppressing the overflowing power. He wanted to slow down his breakthrough as much as possible. However, he could not suppress it for too long. This was because the breakthrough of his star power had reached an unstoppable point. When he had absorbed about a third of the black hole's power, longevity had arrived. The barrier that blocked the limits of the human body had been broken. Lin Jun's body had completely dissolved by this time. He did not hesitate to take out the pills and star crystals he had prepared and swallowed them all. Since he was in a breakthrough, he might as well make the strongest breakthrough. The double increase of the medicinal power and the black hole's power caused Lin Jun's realm to soar. His vision turned dark and bright. His body formed a wonderful cycle. All of his organs changed at this moment. Those organs would no longer fail, and they would no longer be restricted by life, old age, sickness, and death. As long as Lin Jun's soul was not destroyed and his body was not broken, his organs would continue to operate forever. The toxins, impurities, and all the bad things in his body disappeared when he broke through. His star power began to soar crazily. It was an unprecedented surge. Lin Jun's star power was 52 million, of which the star power in his body and the star power in his inner world accounted for about half each. The star power in his body was 26 million, and the star power in his inner world was 26 million. The first to break through was Lin Jun's star power. Lin Jun had already found the pattern. This perfect breakthrough of overflowing star power could directly double his star power. So when Lin Jun broke through the last barrier, his star power in his body soared to the sky, directly reaching 52 million. In addition to the star power in his inner world, his star power had reached 78 million. But this was not the limit. Every time the World King realm increased one star power by 2 million. Every time the Longevity realm increased one star power by 5 million. This was Lin Jun's level. The higher the base, the higher the increase. Under the dual effects of the black hole and the medicinal power, his realm could not be limited to the Longevity realm. It continued to soar. But at this time, Lin Jun's ominous star Ji-Du was finally lit up. The last time the Army Destroyer star was lit up, it gave Lin Jun 5 million star power. But the Army Destroyer star power was still incomparable to Ji-Du's. The Dark Star of Ji-Du's corner had already uncontrollably opened. The massive amount of star power was like an upside-down river, endlessly pouring into his inner world. 22 million star energy. This one star gave Lin Jun a whopping 20 million star points of astral energy. Like this, Lin Jun's star power in his inner world had reached 48 million. With his star power in addition to his star power, the total reached 100 million. From the peak World King realm to the Longevity realm, Lin Jun's star power had finally surpassed 100 million. Lin Jun had once heard a legend. If one wished to enter the divine transformation realm, the lowest requirement was 100 million star power. Now that he was at the Longevity realm, could he be considered as the worst divine transformation realm martial artist? Lin Jun knew that he was not the worst because his breakthrough had yet to be completed. The star power medicinal efficacy was still incomparably great, enough to support him as he continued to climb higher. Starting from the Longevity realm level, Lin Jun began to break through like a hot knife through butter. From the first level to the second level, his star power reached 105 million. From his second level to the third level, his star power reached 110 million. When Lin Jun broke through from the Domain King to the World King, he reached the third level of the World King. But this time, with the support of the black hole's power, Lin Jun would not stop at the third level. After reaching the third level, the power of the black hole had not been exhausted yet, but it actually sent Lin Jun directly to the fourth level of the Longevity realm. 115 million astral energy. Lin Jun's fingers trembled with excitement. This was the middle stage of the Longevity realm. But strictly speaking, the fourth level was not the true middle stage. The fifth level was the true middle stage. Just as Lin Jun was thinking about this, he actually reached the fifth level. 120 million star power. This was something that Lin Jun did not dare to imagine before his breakthrough. He actually went straight to the fifth level of the Longevity realm. At this time, the power of the black hole was finally coming to an end. Give me a little more power. Let me reach the peak of the intermediate realm. As Lin Jun thought about it, he exerted all his strength and swallowed the naked singularity that was about to run out of energy. The naked oddity contained the final power of the black hole and was also the strongest power. With this swallow, a miracle actually happened. The realm that was about to stagnate actually soared crazily again, straight to the sixth level. 125 million astral energy. An unprecedented power surged in Lin Jun's body. This power was so strong that it seemed to be able to destroy the world. His long hair fluttered in the air. The black hole had completely disappeared. Between heaven and earth, only Lin Jun sat there alone, surrounded by an endless vacuum. At this moment, he looked like a demon god. From his previous life to this life, after more than 2,000 years, he finally had a good result in his pursuit of the peak of martial arts. Chapter 831. Lin Jun didn't completely relax after cultivating to immortality. This was because he was observing his body. After his black hole devoured the new black hole, it also mutated. A black hole could only have one naked singularity. When two naked singularities appeared in the same black hole, no one knew what would happen. When Lin Jun swallowed the naked singularity, he didn't consider the situation too much. He only hoped to continue increasing his energy and make his breakthrough stronger. The naked singularity entered Lin Jun's dantian and became a part of his black hole. However, the two naked singularities clashed. The original rejected the new one, while the new one didn't want to be destroyed and wanted to devour the original. Of course, Lin Jun wouldn't let the new one devour the old one. With his help, the old naked singularity won. However, the new one wasn't destroyed. The result of not being destroyed was submission. The naked singularity was also assimilated by Lin Jun. Lin Jun used the principle of the dark star to hide the new naked singularity behind the old naked singularity, turning it into a shadow-like existence. Lin Jun couldn't consult anyone on this matter. He could only fumble forward. The result of this was that the black hole mutated. Two powerful energies clashed, and the new naked singularity turned into an illusory shadow. Under the observation of his mental power, the two naked singularities were separated by a distorted spatial barrier. They existed, but didn't affect each other. The entire black hole had become very huge. It had basically reached the peak of a stellar-level black hole. If new energy was injected, it would become a superstar-level black hole. Lin Jun tried releasing the black hole to devour, but the old naked singularity still appeared. Lin Jun called it Naked Singularity 1. As for Naked Singularity 2, it was in a nearly illusory state, but it wasn't released like this. Number 2 could appear anywhere in Lin Jun's field of vision. It was as though he could teleport. At this moment, Lin Jun's vision could only be described as abnormal. When he was on the ground of the primordial realm, he didn't feel anything. But now that he was in the endless void, Lin Jun could even see the twinkling stars in the distance. It wasn't as simple as seeing. Instead, it was like seeing through a high-powered astronomical telescope. It could see things millions of kilometers away, tens of millions of kilometers, or even hundreds of millions of kilometers away. For example, the mountains and canyons on the planet could be seen at a glance. Within his field of vision, Naked Singularity number 2 could appear anywhere and unleash terrifying death ripples. This was the special ability of the black hole after it mutated, Instant Devour. However, Naked Singularity number 2 was only an accessory. It did not have a powerful devouring ability like Naked Singularity number 1. No, one's devouring power could devour anyone whose astral power was less than twice that of Lin Jun's. In other words, anyone whose astral power was below 250 million wouldn't be able to resist Lin Jun's black hole storm. Meanwhile, Naked Singularity number 2's devouring power was on par with Lin Jun's main body's astral power. It could devour anyone whose astral power was below 125 million. This was also considered a form of long-range weakening. However, this was enough for Lin Jun. At the very least, those who were weaker than him wouldn't be able to escape his field of vision. This breakthrough caused Lin Jun's strength to undergo an earth-shattering change. In addition to his main body's advancement and the black hole's mutation, Lin Jun had another, even more remarkable change. That was the transformation of his clone. When the 5 elements Qilint's main body broke through, it also broke through the layers of barriers and entered the 3-flower realm. Lin Jun's clone previously had an astral power of 90 million. After entering the 3-flower realm, the increase in his astral power wasn't as terrifying as his main body's. It was only 30 million. After all, it wasn't a real life form. An increase of 30 million was already very impressive. However, after entering the 6-flower realms, he was able to increase his astral power by 10 million with each level. This allowed his astral power to reach the terrifying number of 170 million. Although the overall increase wasn't as great as his main body's, Lin Jun was already extremely satisfied. If this continued, then his main body would be able to accompany Lin Jun as he entered the peak of divine transformation. For his clone, this was the best result possible. With such a main body and clone, Lin Jun was confident that he wouldn't lose to an early divine transformation master. After breaking through the raging tide realm, he still needed some time to stabilize his boundary. Lin Jun didn't move, allowing the surging astral power within his body to gradually calm down. In the endless starry skies, a long fleet of carriages was advancing. These carriages weren't ordinary carriages, but rather prison carriages. Each carriage was pulled by a pitch-black three-horned bull. These bulls were completely black from head to toe. They had 3 horns on their heads, and their eyes were blood red. They were more than 10 meters tall and had bulging muscles. They swung their tails like steel whips, making them look like giant beasts from ancient times. There was a driver in front of each carriage, and each driver was a 3-flower realm expert. They held thorny whips in their hands as they drove the 3-horned bulls forward. The carriages were made of metal, but there wasn't a metal fence in the middle. Instead, there were laser beams driven by energy that formed a protective barrier for the carriages. These laser beams were extremely hot and corrosive, so it was impossible to approach them. There was a prisoner in each of the prison wagons. These prisoners had very special identities because they all had one thing in common, and that was that they all wore dragon robes. These prisoners were all emperors. This even included the emperor of the Great Qin Empire, Zhu Ziheng. Zhu Ziheng was also a 3-flower realm expert, but at this moment his head was firmly fixed outside the prison carriage. His body was inside the carriage and couldn't move at all. His former majesty was completely gone. His head was bent and his face was ashen. His dragon robes were tattered, and there were many wounds on his body that couldn't be healed. Behind him were the emperors of many other countries. The Great Han Dynasty, the Great Tang Dynasty, the Great Ming Dynasty, the Great Zhao Dynasty. Every one of them was the emperor of a major country in the primordial realm. There wasn't a single emperor from a small country like the Southern Liang Dynasty. The line of prison carriages stretched for more than 10 kilometers. There were thousands of prison carriages. Next to the prison carriages, there were also escorting troops. The lowest-ranking soldiers were all in the immortal realm. However, these soldiers looked tall and strong, and their faces were ferocious. They had curved horns on their heads and exposed fangs. They were even more terrifying than the beasts of the primordial realm. If someone who understood the endless sea of stars saw this, they would definitely recognize that these escorting troops belonged to the devil race. The devil race was a race that depended on the emperor race. They were violent, aggressive, and inhumane. They had been the public enemy of mankind since ancient times. Later, the devil race was subdued by the emperor race. After losing the war with the races on the ground of the primordial realm, they followed the emperor race into the endless sea of stars. They had basically disappeared from the primordial realm. Only in some folk circuses, performance venues, and other places, one would occasionally see a weak demon slave. Compared to these vigorous and powerful troops, they could not be mentioned in the same breath. At the back of the troop, there were a few 3-headed hellhounds. These hellhounds were shockingly huge. They were pulling a large, luxurious carriage behind them. The carriage was a small palace. Inside the palace, a devil race ancient martial art practitioner with 2 horns on his head was resting with his eyes closed. Beside him was a group of humans. Although these humans' clothes were messy, it was obvious that they were people of status in the primordial realm. Among them were eunuchs, officials, palace guards, and even the emperor's concubines. They were all humans, but they had a common clone. They were the endless sea of star spies in the primordial realm. One of the beautiful imperial concubines bowed to the demon race martial artist and said, "Lord Kitty Lu, according to your orders, we have captured the emperors of the countries in the primordial realm that resist the races of the endless sea of stars the most. There are a total of 1,400 people." Kitty Lu opened his eyes slightly. "You've captured all of them, most of them. These countries are the ones that resist us the most. They push their countries to fight against us. Of course, there are far more countries that resist us in the primordial realm, but it's too difficult to capture too many people at once. We can only choose the important ones to capture. Well done. Now that the emperors of these countries have been captured by us, their successors will definitely not dare to be like them and go against the endless sea of stars so brazenly. Receiving Kitty Lou's praise, the imperial concubine was overjoyed. That's right. When the time comes, we will replace them with a group of muddle-headed ones. The threat to us will be much smaller, and our defense will be lowered. We will definitely be able to lead the army back to the Earth one day. That's not something you should be concerned about. Kitty Lou's face turned cold. Those who wanted to claim credit all retreated, afraid that they would be unlucky and get themselves killed. However, Kitty Lou was in a good mood today and did not pursue the matter with these lowly humans. They had been preparing for this day for too long. Even since tens of millions of years ago, they had already made arrangements in the primordial realm and planted spies. Countless of these spies were planted, and some of them succeeded and even became emperors, such as Qin Wuxian. Some became ministers, some became guards, and some even became imperial concubines. There were even people who had been naked for tens of millions of years who entered the palace and became eunuchs, gaining the trust of the emperors. Successful spies were groomed for the sake of capturing the emperors one day. The operation this time was very successful, and they had captured more than 1,000 emperors. After these people were captured, it was believed that in this large area, the defense against the endless sea of stars would be greatly weakened. Perhaps it would not be long before the endless sea of stars races returned to the surface. You guys are fighting desperately with the primordial realm experts on the battlefield, but how can you remember that I, Kitty Lou, have contributed greatly? This time, when I return to the endless sea of stars, I will definitely be heavily rewarded. Just as Kitty Lou was immersed in the fantasy of the beautiful days in the future, his artificial intelligence suddenly reminded him, "Master, there are unknown radio waves coming from nearby. It seems to be information about the endless sea of stars. Do you accept it? There are actually people releasing radio waves in this barren land where even birds don't shit. Accept it and take a look. Perhaps before we leave, we can still catch one or two big fish." Chapter 832. Kitiru connected to the radio wave. The content of the radio wave was received in the dimensional universe. This radio wave was a promotional video. Like many promotional videos on the ground of the primordial realm, it promoted the brutality, ugliness, and filth of the races in the endless sea of stars. In the scenes of war, all the races in the endless sea of stars became synonymous with despicable. They burned, killed, looted, and committed all kinds of crimes. They posed a great threat to the people on the ground of the primordial realm. The demons played the role of a clown in it. They were even depicted as a dog led by the emperor clansman. The dog's head was that of a standard demon, and it looked somewhat similar to Kitiru. After watching for a while, Kitiru's expression became uglier and uglier. Check it out. Check the source of this radio wave. Yes, sir. The source of the radio wave is nearby. It shouldn't be far from us. We'll be able to find it soon. Damn it. If I find out, I'll definitely tear these despicable fellows into pieces. Feeling humiliated, Kitiru was furious. He immediately began to trace the source of the radio wave. The person who sent the radio wave was very arrogant. He didn't try to hide it at all, and he quickly determined the location. "Sir, the source of the radio wave is 4 million kilometers to the left. Order the fleet to stop moving forward. The first team will follow me and see who's behind this." 1,000 demon warriors followed behind Kitiru's palace car and whizzed toward the source of the radio wave. The demons came very quickly. The hellhound's strides were astonishingly large. With a single step, they crossed thousands of miles. It hadn't been long since the machine sent out the radio wave. He didn't even know if anyone would come. He only did this with the hope of taking revenge on Lin Jun, but he didn't expect to attract such a group of fellows. When the demons appeared in his field of vision, he didn't even have time to escape. The huge hellhounds rushed over. At this moment, the machine even forgot that he wanted to perish together with Lin Jun. Facing the terrifying hellhounds, he turned around and wanted to run. However, the hellhounds wouldn't give him the chance to escape. One of the hellhounds stuck its head out and directly bit the machine in its mouth. The huge fangs closed up and down, and sparks flew from the machine's waist. Kacha! Kacha! The metal was twisted, and the machine's body was about to be crushed. The robot didn't feel any pain, but he knew that he would definitely be eaten by the hellhounds. At this critical moment, the robot shouted, "You can't kill me. I'm here to help you. Stop." In the carriage of the palace, Kitaru waved his hand slightly, and the hellhound stopped its devouring. Creak! The door of the palace opened, and the Cerberus's big head carried the machine to the entrance of the palace. The machine saw many humans standing on the left and right sides of the palace. At the very center sat a very strong high-level demon. "What did you just say about helping us? To be clear, if there's anything I'm not satisfied with, you'll be fed to the dogs." Yes, yes, yes. The machine saw a glimmer of hope for survival. His courage to perish together with Lin Jun had long since disappeared. "Sir, you must have come from the endless sea of stars. Of course, have you seen such a powerful army on the ground of the primordial realm?" A human scolded him. The machine had even seen this person before. This person seemed to be a guard captain in the Qin Palace, but he didn't know why he was here. Now was not the time to pursue this. The machine said anxiously, "Since you're from the endless sea of stars, have you heard of Lin Jun?" "Lin Jun? Which Lin Jun are you talking about?" Kitiru was stunned at first. Then he stood up from his seat. He raised his hand, and the machine was pulled from the hellhound's mouth in front of him. The machine fell to the ground, twisted its neck, and lifted up. Which other Lin Jun could it be? Of course, it's the Lin Jun who eliminated Qin Jianfeng on the Star of Divine Punishment and exposed the identities of the Qin father and son. "I know about this Lin Jun. What do you want to say?" Kitiru asked. "I'm tired of the life on the ground of the primordial realm. As long as you let me enter the endless sea of stars, I'll tell you Lin Jun's location. He's nearby and will probably leave soon." Kitiru's expression did not change, but his heart was already in turmoil. So Lin Jun was nearby. This was great. Back then, Qin Jianfeng's incident had caused the endless sea of stars to be in a passive position. Their best chess piece had been destroyed just like that. Among the spies planted by the endless sea of stars, Qin Wushang was the best. He was the emperor of the largest empire on the ground. Such an important position. Unfortunately, something had happened to his son. No matter if Lin Jun did it intentionally or not, he was still the enemy of the endless sea of stars. If he could capture Lin Jun, then it would definitely be a great achievement. As for this thing in front of him that he couldn't tell if it was a human or a machine, it was nothing in his eyes. It didn't matter if he kept it. He could kill it at any time. "Can you find Lin Jun's location now?" "I can try." Kitiru indicated that the machine could begin. The machine was overjoyed. This proved that Kitiru had already believed his words. It was very likely that he could successfully take revenge and would not have to die. He cast his gaze in the direction of Lin Jun, which was the direction of the black hole. The black hole that had previously caused people to tremble in fear had completely disappeared. There were no longer any traces of it. The machine's eyeballs moved, and a metal compound eye appeared in between his eyebrows. A faint red light flashed, and his vision increased greatly. The blurry starry sky moved forward layer by layer. His eyes were like high-powered astronomical telescopes. Kitiru and the others looked at the machine with interest. This machine was quite interesting. "Oh, he's really here. Lin Jun." In the compound eye, he saw Lin Jun sitting cross-legged in the distant void. He seemed to be cultivating. "Sir, I can already see him." The machine raised its hand, and a virtual screen appeared. What it saw was what it saw. The scene in the screen was very clear. They could even see Lin Jun's hateful face. "Sir, it's really Lin Jun. It's really him. I came from the ground. I know this person." "Yes, yes, I can also confirm that His Majesty Qin Wushang had to leave the Qin kingdom because of this person. At that time, I was still an ordinary guard of the Qin palace." Kitiru's face showed a ferocious smile. "Good. This trip was not in vain. We finally caught a big fish. Let's set off now and catch Lin Jun. Everyone listen to my orders. Move forward immediately. Don't alarm him with your cries and howls. Quietly lay down an inescapable net. I want to catch him alive this time." The three-headed hellhound was driven by the coachman. It let out a deafening roar, spread its claws, and sped up, rushing in the direction of Lin Jun. The devil race warriors waved their axes, hammers, pitchforks, and other weapons in their hands. They came out from both sides, ready to block Lin Jun's escape route. The machine let out a long sigh of relief, thinking that he had finally survived. At this time, Kitiru's eyes looked at him, and suddenly there was a flash of coldness. This person sent radio waves to insult the races of my endless sea of stars. This is unforgivable. Drag him out and feed him to the dogs. Several devil race third flowering period generals immediately rushed up and grabbed the machine and went out. Sir, you just accepted my suggestion. I brought the news of Lin Jun. Humph. What you have done is not enough to forgive your sins. You should be thankful that you are not a flesh and blood life. Otherwise, I will let my men tear you apart. The machine was desperate and no longer made any resistance. He let the devil race generals drag him out. When he saw the hellhound opening its mouth to bite, the machine whispered, "Yihua, my son, Father finally avenged you." The restlessness of Lin Jun's inner world finally calmed down. After entering the immortal world, his inner world did not expand. If there was a change, it was the breath here. The previous world was roughly equivalent to the new territories. It was not an excellent place for cultivation. Such a world could only give birth to a world king at most. It was impossible for immortals to appear. Now, his world was equivalent to the primordial realm. It was a holy land for cultivation. In his dantian, inside the black hole, pearl-like beads floated in the black hole. Among them, one was the largest and brightest. This was Lin Jun's Qilin bead, the planet god bead that he had obtained before. When a new black hole merged, a large amount of dark energy and dark matter gathered, increasing the density of this god bead. The surrounding small beads could not be ignored. Each bead was the neutron of the black hole. They were all extremely dense and compressed. Each bead, big or small, was a planet. His spiritual power swam between these beads, and he was undergoing a grand cultivation, transforming his galaxy domain. Lin Jun's galaxy domain previously relied on mind power to condense planets. Although it could explode, it was not very powerful. He had abandoned it for a long time. What he wanted to do this time was to replace the virtual planets with these Qilin beads. There was no need for an explosion. Gravity distortion was enough. Unlike ordinary gravity fields, this gravity distortion was more terrifying than the sharpest knife in the world. One could imagine what would happen to the people inside if they were squeezed by the gravity of two planets. Moreover, it was not just two planets. In Lin Jun's black hole, there were hundreds of neutrons. Even if Lin Jun could not drive all of them for the time being, it was not a problem to drive a dozen or 20 of them. His mind power swam continuously as he tried. It's about the limit. 28 is the limit I can control now. However, it's still enough to set up a starry sky. Lin Jun retracted his hand and looked into the distance. It was the direction where the demons came from. Chapter 833. The Devil Race team finally approached Lin Jun. After knowing that the other party was Lin Jun, the Devil Race warriors were even a little excited. Killing or capturing someone they hated was always more satisfying than killing a nobody. So when they surrounded Lin Jun, everyone wanted to be the first to rush out and capture Lin Jun. Everyone was waiting for Kitiru to give the order. It was Kitiru's first time seeing Lin Jun. In the eyes of some people in the endless sea of stars, the name Lin Jun was just a symbol. He wasn't very strong, but he was a nobody who had unintentionally ruined their plans. Because the two sides were in a hostile relationship, the endless sea of stars and the primordial realm surface didn't communicate with each other. The surface races didn't know what was going on inside the endless sea of stars, and the endless sea of stars didn't know about the surface races. The buffer zone that was 10,000 light-years long and the endless battlefield that was 10 billion light-years long completely isolated the surface from the endless sea of stars. At least in the eyes of ordinary people, the primordial realm's surface was a very distant place, so far that they might never be able to reach it. After Qin Jianfeng failed and returned to the endless sea of stars with Qin Wushang, he deliberately mentioned Lin Jin's matter. So Lin Jin was still somewhat well known in the endless sea of stars. After seeing Lin Jin, Kitaru felt that he was just a lucky weakling that he could kill with a flick of his finger. Just as he was about to give the order, the Dimensional Universe's communication device suddenly rang. The Dimensional Universe Corporation in the endless sea of stars and the Dimensional Universe Corporation on the surface of the primordial realm were not the same company, but their technology was similar, and they didn't communicate with each other. After connecting to the Dimensional Universe, a woman appeared on the screen. "Greetings, Sister Xiao." The woman wore a late green dress. Her clothes weren't luxurious, but her face was cold and elegant, and she had a lofty aura. Although her realm was only at the three-flower realm, and her identity was only that of maid, Kitaru still had to be respectful because she belonged to the ruling clan of the endless sea of stars, the Emperor clan. "Kitaru," Xiao Yi's faint voice sounded. "Has your fleet set off? Did the operation go well?" Reporting to Sister Xiao Yi, "The mission has been completed perfectly. This time, we have captured a total of 1,400 emperors of the primordial realm. All of them are emperors of major countries. They have all been put into prison wagons and are currently moving forward in the buffer zone. It is estimated that we will cross the buffer zone in 47 hours. "That's not right," Xiao Yi snorted. "I've already asked about your departure time. You set off 36 hours ago. There were no battles along the way. Based on the Trihorn Bull's speed, it should have covered 45% of the distance by now. Excluding the teleportation portal, it would take another 45 hours to cross the buffer zone. What were you doing with the extra 2 hours? Don't tell me you found some beautiful human girls to have fun with?" With that, Xiao Yi's face turned cold. "You better give me a reasonable explanation, Kitaru, or I'll report this to Mount Qingqiu and let the crown princess decide it herself." Kitaru hurriedly explained, "Sister Lil, you must listen to my explanation. I'm really not delaying the march. I also know how important this batch of prisoners is. It's just that we encountered something halfway." Kitaru told her about the mechanical disc playback and blabbered along the way. "In the end, we came here and saw this person called Lin Jun." With that, Kitaru connected the image of the dimensional universe. "Sister Lil, look. This is the guy who is very controversial in the primordial realm. It is said that he is the most wanted criminal in the primordial realm. However, after joining the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land, no one dares to find trouble with him." The woman called Lil obviously knew about Lin Jun. When she saw Lin Jun sitting cross-legged in the void in the dimensional universe, her eyes suddenly lit up. "Oh, this is the guy who caused Qin Jianfeng to be eliminated. Good. This time, I won't pursue your decision to change the itinerary. Take action immediately and take down this person for me." "Understood, Sister Lil. That? Do you want him dead or alive?" "Of course I want him alive. Don't tell me you can't do it." "Don't worry, Sister Lil. It's just a longevity realm. It's a piece of cake." Wanted to show off in front of Lil. Kitaru waved his hand at his subordinates. "Go capture Lin Jun. I want him alive. If anyone accidentally kills him, I'll feed him to the dogs." The group of devils who had been waiting impatiently received the order and immediately roared and rushed toward Lin Jun. The devils' weapons were all very lethal, such as war hammers, giant axes, and so on. At this time, if it were anyone else, they would have stood up to face the enemy. However, Lin Jun was still sitting cross-legged there, motionless. This made the devils who were waving their weapons and shouting to kill a loss. Lord Kitaru wanted to capture him alive, so they naturally couldn't smash him with their weapons. However, when they reached Lin Jun's side, they didn't know what to do. Tie him up with rope," a small leader of the devil race shouted. The surrounding devil race took out ropes and prepared to tie Lin Jun up. Just then, a sudden change occurred. The surrounding starry sky suddenly changed its scenery. Previously, the surrounding starry sky existed in a vacuum state. No celestial bodies could be seen, and no dark energy could be felt. If it weren't for the fact that these martial artist realms were very high, they wouldn't even be able to survive here. This was a barren land without any vitality. But now, a starry sky suddenly appeared around them. Within a radius of 10,000 meters, planets were faintly discernible. Colorful planets with halos appeared one after another. What the hell? The devil leader was stunned for a moment and assumed a defensive posture. However, he didn't feel any discomfort. Don't worry about this for now. Capture Lin Jun first. The devils continued to attack. Before the rope was wrapped around Lin Jun's body, a terrifying thing happened. The devils in the starry sky felt many inconceivably huge forces coming from all directions at the same time. This power was simply irresistible. The only thing they could feel was that the source of this power was the planets. However, they couldn't understand why these planets were able to release such power, and they didn't have the time to figure it out. This was because beneath the pressure of these massive forces, they died. Without making any movements to resist, without even a single sound, they were crushed by these massive forces, instantly turning into pools of blood. It was like a pile of beans being crushed by countless giant discs, turning into thin slices. They were inconceivably thin. Even the slightest breeze caused them to evaporate and vanish. There were around 500 devil martial artists that had entered this starry sky. But these 500 devil martial artists had all vanished. If one didn't slow this down several thousand times, it would be impossible to see how they died. They died, but the starry sky remained the same. This horrifying scene shocked everyone. Kitty Lou was in the carriage, pulled by the hellhounds. He pointed forwards in disbelief. This is a domain. As a super master of the divine sense transformation realm, he could still see that this person had used a domain. Others couldn't even see a domain. Perhaps some people could see it, but they didn't dare to believe that Lin Jun could release such a powerful domain. Xiao Yi, who had been watching, had an ugly expression. I'm sure that Lin Jun has a master who has reached the divine transformation realm. Kitty Lou, can you handle this? Sister Xiao Yi, don't worry. We devil martial artists won't admit defeat so easily. Kitty Lou pointed at the carriage driver. Let the hellhounds go. I want to see what this Lin Jun has. The carriage driver shook off the reins and issued an order. Several hellhounds immediately roared and charged at Lin Jun. These hellhounds were very powerful. Although they had low intelligence, their strength was definitely above that of a three-flower martial artist. When these three hellhounds joined forces, even a divine sense transformation realm martial artist would have to be careful. The hellhounds charged into the starry sky and flashed around at an extremely high speed. Although the gravitational force was powerful, it couldn't be released at the speed of light. As long as there were no other disturbances, they could dodge it. But at that moment, there was a deafening roar, and a huge nine-headed lion appeared. This nine-headed lion was incredibly powerful. The black mane around its neck danced in the wind, and its massive body was over 40 meters long. It was actually a divine sense transformation superstar river beast. This was Lin Jun's mount, a variation superstar river beast, the nine-headed lion, Jiuling. Jiuling had killed the nine-headed snake in Lin Jun's inner world. The nine-headed lion and nine-headed snake were similar to each other to begin with. Both were great supplements to the other. After swallowing the nine-headed snake, Jiuling had actually directly evolved and entered the divine transformation realm. As the nine-headed lion appeared, the three hellhounds immediately shivered. The nine-headed lion's strength was a level higher than theirs. The hellhounds were a bit afraid, but under the control of the carriage driver, the three hellhounds threw themselves at the nine-headed lion and began to tear at it. Each hellhound had 3 heads. With the 3 of them working together, it was impossible for a normal Star River beast to block their attacks. But the nine-headed lion was different. This fellow had a total of 9 heads. With a shake of its head, more heads appeared, forcefully suppressing the hellhound's attacks. The 4 great beasts began to slaughter each other in the void. Seeing the situation, Kitiru could no longer sit still. Big Sister Lil, I miscalculated this. I never thought that Lin Jun would have a 9-headed lion helping him. If I don't do it myself, I fear that the hellhounds won't be able to resist. Go. You absolutely cannot fail. Remember, Green Hill Mountain is still waiting for these prisoners to return. Understood. I will personally go and capture Lin Jun and that lion. Kitaru fiercely stood up and was about to rush out of the palace. But before he could leave, a thick beam of light came crashing down on him. Not good. Kitaru felt a chill run down his spine. He leapt into the skies, smashing through the roof of the palace and escaping. But his palace carriage had been blasted apart by this strike. As the palace broke apart, Lin Jun finally opened his eyes. His mouth slowly closed. That beam of light had come from his mouth. Welcome to the primordial realm, ugly freaks of the endless sea of stars. Chapter 834. When Lin Jun fired the Qilin cannon, Kitty Lu realized that Lin Jun wasn't as weak as he thought. Today, he might have kicked an iron plate. However, as a divine will transformation expert, Kitty Lu couldn't believe that he wasn't an opponent of an immortal stage expert. He needed to use his sword and spear to prove it. His weapon was a mountain-splitting axe. When he pulled out the axe, he was still in the air, and the axe had already chopped down. Humans aren't even worthy of being slaves. What right do they have to occupy the fertile land of the primordial realm? Lin Jun die. As soon as these words came out, Lin Jun's face turned cold. This Kitty Lu is dead for sure. Taking out the Void Cutter Divine Sword, Lin Jun stepped forward and said, courting death. The mountain-splitting axe chopped down. Lin Jun used shadowless steps and nimbly dodged the opponent's attack. Then he swung his sword back. Kitty Lu sensed that Lin Jun had disappeared and knew that things weren't good. However, he didn't panic. He crouched down and swung his axe back at lightning speed. Lin Jun had disappeared again. Shadowless steps wasn't just a single step. It had many variations. The first diagram had 1 step, the second diagram had 3 steps, and the third diagram had 10 steps. Lin Jun had already mastered 6 shadowless steps diagrams. His footsteps had more than 10,000 steps. When fighting, as long as Lin Jun didn't want to be attacked, the opponent wouldn't even be able to touch the corner of his clothes. Kitty Lu displayed his brute force and turned it into axe shadows. However, Lin Jun seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll among the axe shadows. No matter how much Kitty Lu roared, he couldn't injure Lin Jun at all. The more he couldn't hit, the more Kitty Lu didn't dare to stop. This was because he knew that when facing an opponent with strange footwork, he couldn't give the opponent a chance to make a move. Once the opponent made a move, it would be too late for him to defend or dodge. He could only continue to exert pressure. Another thing that worried him was Lin Jun's domain. Maintaining high-intensity attacks was also a way to break the domain. As long as his attacks could tear space, Lin Jun wouldn't be able to release his domain. However, continuous pressure consumed a lot of star power and stamina. Just like that, after a minute of crazy attacks, Kitty Lu was already sweating profusely. At this moment, he even regretted using a heavy weapon. If it was a sword, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. What was even more incomprehensible to him was that Lin Jun was only in the immortality realm. How could he force him to such an extent? Kitty Lu had been bitten to death by the lion. Kitty Lu was bitten to death. Kitty loses. Kitty Lu was shocked. If the 9-headed lion killed the 3 hellhounds and turned around to attack him with Lin Jun, things would be troublesome. S's in his, Kitty Lu's right. Yes, it had his tyrants. With a roar, his body swelled up like a balloon. The muscles on his body began to swell rapidly. He was unbelievably strong. On his face and neck, the veins and blood vessels were bulging. It was terrifying. This was an ultimate technique that stimulated the physical strength. It could greatly increase one's combat power. Lin Jun, to be able to force me to use this move, your death is worth it. He raised the big axe in his hand and was about to launch the most violent attack. A cold light flashed in front of his eyes. Tomb of the Gods. The celestial devil tyrant body that had just been activated had one of its arms chopped off by Lin Jun. Idiot, you know that I'm using shadowless steps. How dare you stop and attack quickly? Aren't you courting death? Lin Jun's sword succeeded. His body rushed forward again like lightning. The sword in his hand flashed, and a sword aura appeared. The sword swept across Kitty Lu's head again. Kitty Lu screamed. One of his demon horns was cut off by Lin Jun. After losing an arm and a horn, Kitty Lu finally realized that he was no match for Lin Jun. He still couldn't understand why Lin Jun was so powerful. His surging star power and powerful spiritual power were all above his. However, this didn't stop Kitty Lu from making a choice, which was to escape. Since he was no match for Lu Xian, he certainly couldn't stay here to die. He had a more important mission, which was to go back to rescue the convoy and take the more than 1,000 emperors away from here. Everyone, go and kill Lin Jun, dead or alive. Kitty Lu gave the order. The devil race warriors who were still watching the battle from afar all charged forward, including his coachman, who was also at the peak of the three flowers. Even the humans in the carriage of the palace were all traitors of the human race. They were all ordered to enter the battlefield by Kitty Lu. A team of more than 1,000 people attacked from all directions. The momentum was quite great. When Kitty Lu saw that Lin Jun didn't seem to have any intention of pursuing him, he immediately slipped away. Sister Xiao Yi, I'm not afraid to fight, but I still have the convoy escorting me here. I can't let anything happen to them. The woman named Xiao Yi's face was livid. Understand. You move faster. I don't think your subordinates can hold on for long. Sure enough, he lives up to his reputation. This Lin Jun is quite famous, and his methods are quite powerful. Kitty Lu covered the broken horn on his head with one hand and ran away in a panic. He quickly left the battlefield. Before leaving, he even heard the scream of the second hellhound. He knew that the battle was irreversible. He ran all the way back to the front of the convoy. When he was approaching, he suddenly stopped. He thought that he saw that except for the prisoners in the prison wagons, everyone else had disappeared. This time, there were more than 10,000 people escorting the convoy. He took 1,000 people to chase after Lin Jun. Where were the remaining 9,000 people? He twitched his nose twice and smelled a faint smell of blood. It was the blood of his own kind. They were dead. After realizing this, fear appeared in Kitty Lu's eyes. Even he wouldn't be able to kill 9,000 devil race warriors in such a short time. Who was it? Just as he was panicking, he saw Lin Jun appear from behind a prison wagon with a spear in his hand, as if he had seen a ghost. Kitty Lu, your subordinates aren't a challenge at all. They're too easy to deal with. Lin Jun, why are you here? Where are my subordinates? Haha, you dare to capture more than 1,000 emperors of the primordial realm. Why can't I appear here? As for your subordinates, Lin Jun suddenly opened his mouth at Kitiru and shot out a storm of light bullets. Kitiru was flustered and even suffered a few of the bullets. I just shot like this for a while, and they're all dead. At this time, Kitty Lu finally saw some clues. When Lin Jun shot out the Qilin spear just now, he felt that his opponent's star power was definitely above his. No wonder he was no match for him. By the time he realized this, it was already a little too late. Lin Jun had already closed in like a ghost. The spear in his hand bloomed with deadly spear flowers and swept over with powerful firepower. Summer fire. Flames ignited in the void. It was simply unstoppable. Kitty Lu waved his axe with one hand and blocked a few times pathetically. Several holes had already appeared on his body, and the flames on his wounds were even showing signs of spreading. Kitty Lu's face showed a hint of viciousness. He couldn't take these emperors away. Since he couldn't take them away, he would kill them all. After killing these emperors, his mission this time could be considered half completed. After all, these emperors would be executed after being brought back to the endless sea of stars and interrogated. With a thought, he took out a remote control from his pocket. As long as he pressed the button on it, the round hole on the prison wagon that separated the head from the body would close, and everyone's heads would be chopped off. When Lin Jun saw this scene, he naturally wouldn't let him do as he wished. The spear rushed forward like a poisonous dragon, about to nail his hand. However, Kitty Lu had already made up his mind and was prepared for this. A red light flashed from his chest, and a light shield was released. It actually resisted Lin Jun's fatal spear. Lin Jun didn't stop at all. His nascent soul flew out, completely ignoring the light shield's obstruction, and went straight for Kitty Lu's spiritual sea. At this time, Kitty Lu wanted to kill those emperors, but he was about to be killed by Lin Zhan's nascent soul. He was unwilling to die like this. He had made a great contribution this time, and he still wanted to go back and claim the credit. How would he die here? Lin Zhan, goodbye. Take these headless emperors home and bury them. With a bang, Kitty Lu turned into a cloud of green smoke and disappeared. Shadow Devil Teleportation. This was a unique technique of the demon race. It was different from the teleportation of spiritual power. It was their innate teleportation technique, and they could travel 100,000 kilometers in an instant. 100,000 kilometers away, Kitty Lu appeared, and his remaining hand was still holding a remote control. Lin Zhan, I'll let you get away with nothing. He pressed the button fiercely. At this time, little E, who had been communicating with him in the dimensional universe, suddenly screamed, "Watch out above your head." When Kitty Lu looked up, even his intestines turned green, because he saw a black hole above his head. A black hole was spiraling and had just been born. He saw it. As long as he saw the black hole, he could forget about escaping. The remote control in Kitty Lu's hand was sucked over by the black hole's pulling force, and Kitty Lu couldn't control his body at all. His 120 million star power was unable to even stand firmly. He screamed as his body spun and fell into the depths of the black hole. What was even more tragic was that he was still communicating with little E during this time. "Sister Little E, save me. I don't want to die." Looking at Kitty Lu's final struggle, little E felt a chill in her heart. She didn't understand how Lin Zhan did it. Kitty Lu, an expert of the spiritual force transformation, died with grievances. He didn't even have the qualifications to fight Lin Zhan head-on. "Kitty Lu, don't worry. I'll definitely report this to the princess. The people of the endless sea of stars will definitely avenge you." "No, I don't want to die. Save me." Chapter 835. After killing a divine transformation realm master 100,000 miles away, Lin Zhan's surging star force gradually calmed down. Killing Kitty Lu wasn't the work of his avatar, but his true body. Although Kitty Lu was relatively far away from Lin Zhan's main body, he was still within Lin Zhan's field of vision. The moment he was transmitted here, Lin Zhan had already locked onto him. Naked Singularity number 2 activated, killing him from far away. "Jiuling, let's go and take a look." The 9-headed lion had already killed 3 hellhounds. The 3 hellhounds had 9 heads and were suppressed by the 9-headed lion. It was eating happily when it heard Lin Zhan call out to it. Its mouth opened wide, and it swallowed the 3 hellhounds in a few bites. After swallowing the 9-headed lion and hellhounds, Jiuling was now fat and strong. She carried Lin Zhan in the direction of the prison carriage. Once the main body arrived, the avatar automatically returned to his inner world. After strolling around the prison carriage, Lin Zhan arrived in front of the Great Qin Empire's Emperor Zhu Ziheng. "Great Qin Empire's Emperor, I trust you've been well since we last met." Cough, cough, cough. "Lin Zhan, save me. Lin Zhan, come here and save me. I am the Great Qin Empire's Emperor. Lin Zhan, hurry and save me. I am willing to take you as my master. Lin Zhan, come to my Great Zhao and save me." Lin Zhan felt a headache coming on. He raised his hands and roared out, "All of you stop for me." Feeling its master's displeasure, the 9-headed lion also roared out. The aura of a divine transformation realm vicious beast caused everyone to fall silent. "All of you had best restrain yourselves. Don't make so much noise and annoy me to death. Remember your current status. You are only prisoners, not the high and mighty emperor. Don't put on the airs of an emperor in front of me." The emperors frowned. They didn't think that Lin Zhan would dare to reprimand them. Even if you're a student of the Holy Land, you're not a guard of the Holy Land. As the emperor of a large country, you don't really care about the status of a student of the Holy Land. Of course, Lin Zhan could tell what the emperors were thinking. He snorted and said, "Looks like you guys still can't see the situation clearly. This is the buffer zone between the endless sea of stars and the primordial realm. Your country's surveillance system can't even see your situation, and let me see." Lin Jun's gaze swept around. There are many countries here, and they have even issued a warrant for me, Lin Jun. For example, the Emperor of the Great Wei Dynasty. You are in alliance with the Great Liang, right? Back then, you were also part of the warrant for my arrest. Tell me, should I save you? The Great Wei Emperor's lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. If he had known earlier, why would he help the Southern Liang issue a warrant for Lin Jun? Also, Great Qin's Emperor, your Great Qin's enmity towards me is not small. As the Emperor, shouldn't you take responsibility for this? Am I going to let you go back and let your Qin state continue to be hostile to me? Zhu Ziheng felt a little wronged. He thought to himself that Lin Jun offending the people of the Qin state was something that happened before he took office. How could he be blamed for it? However, at this moment, they were all in prison wagons. After understanding the situation, no one dared to go against Lin Jun. Lin Jun looked around and saw that the arrogance of these emperors had disappeared. He nodded in satisfaction. It's not impossible for me to let you guys go, but I, Lin Jun, have never been a kind man. If you want freedom, sure, but you have to agree to my conditions. What conditions? As long as you say it, I'll agree. Zhu Ziheng was the first to respond. Lin Jun said, it's very simple. Everyone has to announce to your citizens that I, Lin Jun, will become an honorary citizen of your country forever. I will enjoy all the public facilities of your country and your vassal countries for free. I will also enjoy preferential privileges in all public places. This shouldn't be difficult, right? It's not difficult. It's too simple. I agree. Mr. Lin Jun, you are definitely an honorary citizen of our great Jin Empire. You will enjoy VIP treatment. All your expenses in our country will be covered by the royal family. I also agree. The same goes for our great Ming Empire. I can add an honorary citizen status to your dimensional universe. Our great Ming Empire and our 4 vassal countries will always be your friends. When I go back, I will announce to the people of the Great Qin Empire that anyone who dares to be hostile to Lin Jun will be treated as an accomplice of the endless sea of stars. This is clearly a scumbag who misses the imperial family. It is absolutely unforgivable. Yes. I will also announce it when I go back. The emperors in the prison wagons around talked at once. Lin Jun nodded with satisfaction. Very good. In addition, I am short of money recently. I believe that your majesties can give me some support. Lin Jun finally revealed his true motive. These were all emperors. They were super fat sheep. If he did not extort a good sum of money from them, it would be a waste of this heaven-sent opportunity. No problem. It's just that we are now imprisoned, and our dimensional universe cannot be opened. As long as Mr. Lin Jun lets us out, I am personally willing to transfer 100 billion to you as a reward. 100 billion for me as well. 100 billion for me as well. These emperors were considered smart. None of them raised their voices at this price, lest they become the target of public criticism. However, Lin Jun waved his hand lightly. If he had too much money, it would arouse the jealousy of others. 100 billion was not a small sum to anyone. If each of them had 10 billion, the 1,400 emperors here would have a total of 14 trillion. Recently, he had been busy cultivating and did not have much time to refine pills to earn money. This way, he could save a lot of time. When he said that each of them only needed 10 billion, these emperors, who were initially feeling the pinch, were truly grateful to Lin Jun. Lin Jun waved the sword aura in his hand and cut open the prison wagons one by one, releasing the emperors. Those who could become emperors of a country were basically all 3 flower martial artists. They all had very strong recovery methods and would definitely carry a lot of medicine with them. Therefore, after Lin Jun released them, these emperors each swallowed medicine and meditated to cultivate. They quickly recovered. Lin Jun sat on the back of 9 spirits and looked at these emperors in dragon robes. He felt very strange. After a while, the first emperor transferred money to Lin Jun. After announcing his dimensional universe account, all the emperors added Lin Jun as a friend and transferred a huge sum of 10 billion to him. The notifications kept ringing. Soon, Lin Zhen's account had a huge sum of 14 trillion. Hee. Your Majesties, money is just a worldly possession. You must not forget the kindness of saving your lives. You must do what you promised me as soon as possible. The Emperor of the Qin Kingdom, Zhu Ziheng, was the first to leave a message in the dimensional universe and on the Qin Kingdom forum. I am the Emperor of the Great Qin Kingdom, Zhu Ziheng. I now issue an imperial edict. From today onwards, the Great Qin Kingdom, East Qin, West Qin, South Qin, and North Qin are the 4 major vassal states. Mr. Lin Zhen, the current martial artist of the Fallen Star Lake Holy Land, Fire Qilin clan leader, and the Grand Elder of the Alchemist Guild, is an honorary citizen of the Qin Kingdom. Mr. Lin Zhen is free of charge of all public facilities in our country and has priority to use them. The people of the Qin Kingdom are not allowed to be hostile to Mr. Lin Zhen. Otherwise, they will be guilty of colluding with the races of the endless sea of stars to cause chaos. All the public facilities of the Qin Kingdom's allies are not allowed to charge Mr. Lin Zhen. All the expenses will be reimbursed by the royal family of the Great Qin Kingdom. As soon as this order was issued, the chaotic primordial realm was shaken. More than 1,000 emperors had gone missing. This was something that had never happened in the primordial realm. One had to know that these emperors were extremely noble. Each of them led a huge empire, and there were 4 vassal states under them that managed hundreds of millions of people. It was fine if one went missing, but 1,400 went missing at the same time. This caused the primordial realm to explode. The disappearance of each emperor was not accidental. There would always be people close to them who went missing with them. This was clearly a premeditated operation. Apart from the endless sea of stars, no one could do this. Countless armies began to move, wanting to find the whereabouts of the emperors. However, the other party had been planning for so long. So how could they easily catch up to them? Everyone knew that the other party had fled into the cosmos, but the cosmos was too vast. There was nowhere to find them. Just as everyone thought that the primordial realm was about to face a political change, the Qin Kingdom's emperor, Zhu Ziheng, issued such an imperial edict. Everyone knew about the conflict between Lin Zhen and the Qin Kingdom, but Zhu Ziheng announced that Lin Zhen was an honorary citizen. This was unbelievable. Could Zhu Ziheng have been kidnapped by Lin Zhen? Was he forced to issue such an imperial edict? Before they could recover from their shock, a second imperial edict appeared. This time, it was the great Zhao's emperor who issued the imperial edict. The contents of the imperial edict were exactly the same as Zhu Ziheng's, except that the Qin Kingdom was replaced by the Zhao Kingdom, and Zhu Ziheng's name was changed to his own. It was possible that Zhu Ziheng had been kidnapped by Lin Zhen, but it did not make sense for the great Zhao's emperor to be kidnapped. The Qin Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom were separated by mountains and rivers. How could Lin Zhen kidnap 2 people at the same time? However, this was just the beginning. After the Qin Kingdom and the Zhao Kingdom, the Great Han Kingdom, the Great Ming Kingdom, the Great Jin Kingdom, the Great Liao Kingdom, the Great Wei Kingdom. One by one, the emperors of the influential countries in the primordial realm issued imperial edicts. The contents of the imperial edict were the same. It was completely based on Zhu Ziheng's imperial edict. There were no changes at all. The emperors of 1,400 countries had 5,600 vassal countries under them. In addition to their allied countries, each country had dozens of allied countries. In an instant, Lin Zhen had the privilege of hundreds of thousands of countries. In the beginning, everyone was shocked. Later, they became numb. In the end, some people even suspected that their dimensional universe system was broken. Some people suspected that this was completely a prank. How could so many emperors announce such shocking news at the same time? This Lin Zhen was not a currency. How could he be loved by everyone? One had to know that Lin Zhen had not just obtained the status of an honorary citizen. No one was allowed to offend him. Otherwise, he would be treated as a rebel in the endless sea of stars. How could he be a citizen? He was simply an ancestor. Many people immediately went to check the emperor's identities, but the results were not surprising. To be able to issue an imperial edict in their own country's forum in the dimensional universe, other than the emperor, no one else had this ability. This was real. All of this was real. It was not an illusion. Chapter 836. After these emperors issued the imperial edicts, they returned to their respective countries. Behind Lin Zhan's identity in the dimensional universe, there is a string of titles that were simply innumerable. Honorary citizens of more than 1,000 countries. This was probably unprecedented in the history of the primordial realm. There were also more than 1,000 friends in the dimensional universe. The identities of these friends were a little shocking. All of them were emperors. Jiuling, let's go back to the Qin kingdom. There were advantages and disadvantages to this matter this time. He was afraid that he would have to register at the endless sea of stars. However, the benefits were still great. At least on the ground of the primordial realm, Lin Zhan was already a heroic figure. It was said that rescuing emperors was a great merit. Then, he had saved more than 1,000 emperors at once. This merit was hard to estimate. Let's not think about those things for now. Lin Zhan had to go to the Qin kingdom to buy something that he had been thinking about for a long time. It was a wormhole egg. The production of wormhole eggs was quite complicated and difficult. The cost of one was 60 to 70 billion. The price of 100 billion was definitely not high. In order to return to the new territories to pick up his family, Lin Zhan had been thinking about this for a long time. Now that he had broken through to the immortal realm, the time was almost right. Passing through the buffer zone, he took the teleportation portal back to the ground. Now, Lin Zhan felt really good about taking the teleportation portal. Whether there was a queue in front of him or not, he could be the first to take it. It was completely free. 2 days later, Lin Zhan had already returned to the streets of the Qin kingdom. The wormhole eggs that he had ordered on the way had already been prepared. When Lin Zhan returned to the Qin kingdom, he immediately found a merchant to deliver the goods. He ordered 5 at once. 500 billion was a huge sum for others, but for the current Lin Zhan, it was nothing. With the wormhole eggs in hand, Lin Zhan did not immediately return to the new territories. He still had some hesitation in his heart. When he returned home, he did not plan to go back alone. He should bring Little Phoenix and Xian'er back together. That way, the family would be reunited. Otherwise, they would definitely blame him. Xian'er was at the Alchemist Guild. Lin Zhan could look for her at any time, but it was not easy to find Little Phoenix. If he wanted to see her, he would have to wait until the year after, when the 4 Holy Lands gathered. That would be 10 years after he had entered the Holy Land. Should we wait for another 2 years? At this moment, Lin Zhan experienced what it meant to be timid when one was close to home. What he had always looked forward to was actually hesitating when it was close to home. Just as he couldn't make up his mind, the dimensional universe sounded. It was Michelle who brought the news. "Brother, you're in the limelight now, saving all the captive emperors at once. You're really awesome." "Haha, Brother Michelle, that was just a coincidence. It's nothing much. Hey, you don't have to be humble with me. The people sent by the endless sea of stars to escort these emperors are definitely not a bunch of the 3 flowers of longevity. There must be someone in the spiritual transformation stage among them. You were able to save someone from that level. This is not a coincidence. This is true strength." Lin Zhan smiled and didn't elaborate on this issue. He also knew that it was strength, but there was no need to show it off. "Come on. Dongfang Yu, Sunny Dao, and I are at the Wild Rose restaurant in Qin's capital to welcome you." "Oh, that's a great honor. I'll go over now." In the heavenly class of the Holy Land, Lin Zhan, Michelle, Dongfang Yu, and Sunny Dao could be considered good friends. They got along well with each other. It wasn't surprising that they wanted to welcome him back this time. Along the way, they used the free teleportation portal and soon arrived at the Wild Rose restaurant. The waitress with long legs and a slender waist walked over seductively and took the initiative to lead the way for Lin Zhan. "Mr. Lin Zhan, you are the most distinguished guest of the Wild Rose restaurant. If you have any needs, you can tell Karina. I will definitely satisfy your needs." Lin Zhan glanced at the waitress, nodded slightly, and gave her a crystal coin. 1 crystal coin was 1 million. Karina's eyes lit up. "Mr. Lin Zhan, what do you need me to do?" "I need you to serve the dishes quietly. Don't talk nonsense. Can you do that?" Karina's face turned red. She lowered her head and didn't dare to throw flirtatious glances at him anymore. This Lin Jun seemed to be different from those men who couldn't move at the sight of her. After opening the door of the private room, Michelle and the other two welcomed him. "Huh, I guessed it right. Brother Lin Jun has indeed broken through. I knew this would happen when he left the Holy Land." And Michelle was stunned for a moment. He suddenly scurried over and sized him up. F***CK. You've reached Immortal Level 6? I'm not blind, right? Sun Yidao and Dongfang Yu also opened their mouths wide as if they had just seen a ghost. Brothers, there's no need to make a fuss. It's just a coincidence. It wasn't until Lin Jun sat down that Michelle said angrily, "You little brat, you really don't know how to beat people up. Actually, I've known about you for a long time. You were only a domain monarch when you were on the Star of God's Punishment. At that time, I was already at the peak of the Three-Flower Realm. Then, when you reached the peak of the World King and became the #1 freshman in the 33 Heavens Tower, I was still at the peak of the Three-Flower Realm. It wasn't until 3 months ago that I finally broke through to the spiritual force transformation. However, you actually jumped to Immortal Level 6. If I don't see you for another 8 or 10 years, will you advance to the Three-Flower Realm?" The few people present were all outstanding figures in this batch. They were already at the peak of the Three-Flower Realm when they entered the Holy Land. After nearly 10 years of cultivation in the Holy Land, all of them had advanced to the spiritual force transformation. Some of the older students had been surpassed by them. This was why Jean Nua said that the quality of this batch of students was generally high. At this time, Dongfang Yu also sighed with emotion. Brother Lin Jun's talent is really something I've never seen before. Sun Yidao also nodded. That's right. Before I came to the Holy Land, I thought highly of myself and regarded the heroes of the world as nothing. However, after coming here, I realized that I was just a frog in a well. There's always someone better than you, especially Brother Lin. You've really refreshed my understanding of the word genius. Huh. The three of you are sparing no effort in flattering me. Are you trying to beat me up because I'm a tycoon? If that's the case, you really can't beat me. You can eat and drink whatever you want. Michelle raised his wine glass and clinked it with Lin Jun's. You little brat, don't treat the three of us as foodies. We can still afford to treat you to a meal. This time, we're here to welcome you back. Also, we have something to discuss with you. Lin Jun ate a mouthful of food. Say it. What can I help you with? It's the same thing I told you last time about the demigod tomb. Didn't I say before that I took the key to the tomb? If you want to open the door, you can only crack a password lock. Didn't you say that it would take 10 years to open the door? Yes. According to the calculations of the intelligent life in the dimensional universe, if the password is tried one by one, it would take 10 years to try all the passwords. However, brother, we can't wait for 10 years. Now, more than 8 years have passed. If we set off to the Tomb Star, we'll have to return. Before 10 years, we have to return to the Holy Land to participate in the Seniors Grand Competition. Therefore, if we want to go, we have to set off now. Are Brother Dongfang and Brother Sun coming too? Yes. The more people there are, the more strength there is. The two of them have recently made a breakthrough and reached the spiritual transformation. If they go together, the chances of success will be higher. Lin Jun closed his eyes and tapped his fingers lightly on the table. According to Michelle, there must be something good in the demigod tomb. This was because the demigod arrived on this planet when he was on the verge of death. There was no saving him. His inheritance should still be on the Tomb Star. The strength of a demigod expert was unimaginable. His wealth was also immeasurable. However, these were not enough to move Lin Jun. He still wanted to return to the new territories and bring his family over as soon as possible. He was not short of wealth now. Seeing that Lin Jun seemed to be hesitating, Michelle said, "Brother, I know you're an alchemist and don't lack money. However, I'm talking about something that can't be bought with money." "What is it?" Lin Jun asked. "Divinity crystals." Michelle said these two words. Dongfang Yu and Sun Yidao both gasped, and a wolf-like look appeared in their eyes, as if they were looking at something amazing. Lin Jun was stunned. "Who's crazy?" "Brother, aren't you a little crazy for saying this?" Michelle almost vomited blood. "Brother, I'm talking about a crystal, not a nutcase. You're trying to piss me off. Lin Jun realized that he had made a mistake. However, he really didn't know what a divinity crystal was. He asked curiously, "Brother, please explain to me." I'll explain. Dongfang Yu waved the fan in her hand. "Let me explain this matter. If you want to talk about things like divine crystals, it's too amazing. Speaking of divinity crystals, they're actually the world stones in our bodies. Brother, you should know that there are 3 stages of divine transformation: divine world transformation, divine world transformation, and divine stone transformation. These 3 stages are collectively called divine transformation. When you reach the peak of divine stone transformation, you'll break through and become a god. Once you succeed, the divine stone will turn into a small crystal. World stone transformation is divine stone transformation. Divine stone transformation is divinity crystal. When the divinity crystal is formed, you'll become a god." Lin Jun was enlightened. After all, he had only been cultivating for a short period of time and didn't interact much with others. He really didn't know much about such top-notch cultivation secrets. Dongfang Yu continued, "The primordial realm has been passed down for countless years. In fact, many people have become gods. However, do gods die? In fact, they die. Even if they release the world in their bodies, it's only to preserve their souls. However, their divine bodies will be destroyed. It's easier said than done to cultivate again, especially the divinity crystals in their bodies. After they lose them, if they're taken away by others, they can be refined." "What? You're saying divinity crystals can be refined?" Lin Jun asked. "That's right," Michelle added. "As long as you reach the peak of divine stone transformation and feel that your chances of becoming a god are slim, there's actually another way to become a god. That is to refine divinity crystals. According to what I know, this demigod expert wanted to become a god because he obtained a divinity crystal. In the end, he was hunted down and almost died. In the end, he died on the tomb star." Chapter 838. Hearing this, Lin Jun was shocked. There was actually such a way to become a god. It was simply unheard of. Seeing Lin Jun's shock, Michelle said, "There are 2 ways to become a god. One is to become a god through self-cultivation, and the other is to become a god through refining divine crystals. What's the difference between the 2? If there's no difference, everyone can just buy divine crystals to become a god. Why do they have to work so hard to break through?" Lin Jun asked. "Of course there's a difference, and the difference is huge. Those who become a god through self-cultivation are much stronger than those who become a god through divine crystals. For example, Brother Lin, you became a god by relying on your own strength, while the 3 of us became gods through divine crystals. If we really fight, the 3 of us may not be a match for you. This is the difference in strength. Yes. Moreover, it's easier for the aura of the inner world to leak out. If you encounter an expert, he or she can directly follow the aura to your inner world and completely destroy your inner world. You won't even have a chance to recultivate. Only those who become a god through self-cultivation can easily conceal the aura of the inner world. Even if your divine body is destroyed, it won't be easy for the other party to chase after you and destroy your body and soul," Sun Yidao added. Dongfang Yu said, "There's another important point. After refining divine crystals to become a god, your strength will be fixed. There's no longer any possibility of advancement. Although you won't die, your path as a warrior has come to an end. Those who self-cultivate are different. They have unlimited possibilities in the future." Lin Jun thought for a while and said, "Since there's such a big drawback to becoming a god through divine crystals, why are there still so many people fighting over them?" Michelle smiled bitterly. "Brother, you really don't know how difficult it is to become a god. If self-cultivation is so easy to succeed, there won't be so many godstones that become demigods. It's not enough to say that only 1 in 100, or even 1 in 1,000, or even 1 in 10,000. Dongfang Yu smiled. "I won't hide it from you, brother. My ultimate goal is to become a god using divine crystals. At that point, my years of hard work will come to an end. I won't be able to achieve anything higher." "Me too," Sun Yidao said. Michelle hesitated for a moment. "I'll give it a try first. If I fail, then I can only go for the divine crystals. If there's a chance to get a divine crystal, I definitely won't miss it. This is the backup plan I've left for myself. Seeing that Lin Jun still hadn't replied, Michelle said, "Brother, if we get the divine essence, then it belongs to whoever gets it. No one is allowed to fight over it afterwards. Even if you're a genius, are your family members also geniuses like you? Wouldn't they grow old one day? You can never have too many of these things." Lin Jun thought for a moment. "My family members can cultivate to immortality. Immortality is not bad, but it doesn't mean that you'll die with a single slash. Only when you become a god can you release your inner world. If your inner world is big enough, after you become a god, you can even contain their little worlds. When that time comes, even if they die, you can revive them. As long as you don't die, you will never have to worry about your family members dying. But the prerequisite is that they have to become gods. Is this reason enough?" Hearing Michelle's words, Lin Jun was finally tempted. He found a new way forward and a new goal, which was to make his family members become gods. Although this goal seemed unreachable now, it was worth it for him to continue fighting for it. However, this didn't mean that Lin Jun would follow Michelle and the others to the graveyard star. Since it was related to the fight for the divine crystals, there must be a lot of people competing for it, and they must be very strong. It wouldn't be surprising if there were a few God Realm or Divine Stone transformation powerhouses. Although Lin Jun had advanced to immortality, it did not mean that he was reckless. After thinking for a while, Lin Jun said, "Brother Michelle, I think people should fight for things that are within their capabilities instead of chasing after something that's too illusory. Some things may seem beautiful, but they can often make people lose their minds or even their lives. I don't suggest fighting for it now. Wouldn't it be better if everything falls into place when you become more powerful in the future?" Michelle and the others were a little disappointed when they heard Lin Jun's words. However, everyone had their own ambitions, so they could not force Lin Jun to do anything. The few of them had a hearty meal, and then they bid each other farewell and left. However, Lin Jun still planned to go to the graveyard star after seeing Michelle and the others' intentions. If they went to the graveyard star, it would clash with the grand tournament of Saint Lands in 10 years. The few of them would rather not show up in the tournament and fight for the divine crystals. Michelle and the others still left. On the 10th day after Lin Jun returned to the Saint Land, the three of them left the Saint Land after informing Jean Nua about it. Lin Jun did not pay too much attention to such things. He decided to cultivate for a while more. After the grand tournament of Saint Lands in 10 years, he would meet Little Phoenix and bring her and Xian'er back to the new territories. After returning to the Saint Land, Lin Jun began a new round of cultivation. He continued to comprehend the limitless sword style and continued to challenge the Trayastrimsa Heaven Pagoda. After advancing to immortality, Lin Jun's strength skyrocketed. After a few challenges, he actually passed the 11th level of the Trayastrimsa Heaven Pagoda. His main body and clone teamed up and defeated the divine telekinesis transformation territory warrior, astral beast, elemental martial artist, and super swordsman. However, Lin Jun's main body and clone were defeated without any suspense when they fought the divine telekinesis transformation heavenly master. The divine telekinesis transformation heavenly master represented the strongest powerhouse in the divine telekinesis transformation realm. It was not surprising that Lin Jun was defeated. However, completing 30% of the 12th level still shocked the entire Saint Land. Jean Nua was very satisfied with Lin Jun's performance. Now, he could not see anyone else in his eyes. He wholeheartedly nurtured Lin Jun, hoping that he would be able to achieve excellent results in the grand tournament of Saint Lands. Lin Jun did not disappoint him. In the 9th year in the Saint Land, Lin Jun made another breakthrough and entered Immortality Level 7. Jean Nua was even happier when he saw Lin Jun's progress. He had never seen a martial artist who could advance so quickly. Perhaps in a few more years, Lin Jun would reach the Three-Flower Realm. If Lin Jun reached the Three-Flower Realm, he would definitely be a powerful figure who could stand on his own. There were less than 3 months left until the grand tournament of St. Lands in 10 years. Lin Jun was meditating in front of the stone tablet. His consciousness had entered the stone tablet. In front of him was a vast expanse of sword shadows. He had comprehended 99% of the stone tablet. This was the last step. After crossing this step, Lin Jun would be able to completely comprehend this stone tablet. Can I really comprehend the second form of the limitless sword technique, chilling frost before the grand tournament? This last sword has a total of 13,600 sword scars. It's almost a tenth of a second. Once I figure out the sequence of the sword strikes, it's chilling frost. Lin Jun now had a lot of knowledge about this sword. While he was comprehending it, he also entered the dimensional arena. It was a separate training ground. In front of him was a simulation stone tablet. He stood in front of the stone tablet with his eyes closed. As time passed, Lin Jun's body exuded a chilling sword will. The surrounding air distorted around him and was sometimes cut into pieces by the sword chi that was released. If I want to comprehend this sword, I must understand the emotions of the person who carved the stone tablet when he struck. To be able to create the chilling frost sword, this person must be absolutely cold and heartless. Callous and heartless is not a derogatory term for a martial artist. It proves that this martial artist is unmoved by external factors, and their heart of martial arts is incomparably firm. Such a person should have a very high position in the Holy Land. Lin Jun's mind flashed through all the stone tablets he had seen. All of them had a name. He even saw the stone tablet left behind by Jin Nuo in the Sacred Land. However, the limitless sword technique did not have the name of the creator. This made Lin Jun suspicious. Could it be that the person who created this sword technique is the owner of Fallen Star Lake? Whoosh! Lin Jun seemed to have comprehended something at this moment. His black hair danced without wind. Without opening his eyes, the heart sword was already unsheathed. There was no sword in his hand, but there was a sword in his heart. Lin Jun had not mastered this move after so many years in the Sacred Land. However, at this moment, his heart sword was formed. A sword beam flew out and heavily struck the virtual stone tablet in front of him. Stone fragments flew everywhere as a sword mark was carved. It was exactly the same as the stone tablet in the Sacred Land. Success! In front of the Sacred Land stone tablet, Lin Jun opened his eyes. The glint in his eyes made people shudder. At this moment, not only did he master the second move of the limitless sword technique, but he also mastered the heart sword. The so-called heart sword was a manifestation of the sword technique when pushed to the extreme. Not only could it release sword aura, but it could also release powerful and mysterious killing moves. The moves released from the heart sword might not necessarily be more powerful than the moves released from the divine weapon, but this move was impossible to guard against. Who would have thought that the person opposite him would suddenly release a killing move while standing with his hands behind his back? Most people would probably end up with a grievance under the heart sword. After Lin Jun mastered the cold forest, the power of the abyss and cold forest sword technique surpassed that of the god's tomb and became one of Lin Jun's strongest killing moves. After repeatedly experimenting with these two sword techniques, the star power in Lin Jun's body gradually calmed down. Lin Jun's strength had soared again when he reached level 7, 130 million star power, and he had just learned the heart sword and the limitless sword technique. He was now waiting. After the competition, he would return to the New Territories to find his family. New Territories, Andromeda Nebula. This was the capital of the fairy planet. It was a huge planet with a population of hundreds of billions and a diameter several times larger than Earth's. The technological civilization there was highly developed. Spaceships shuttled back and forth in the sky. The buildings on the ground could be folded and moved easily. Even a tall building could be dismantled and taken away. On the capital planet, the Emperor of the Andromeda Nebula was a level 9 realm king. On the streets, taxis were shuttling back and forth. The taxi driver, John, honked his horn. This is really a congested day. The traffic on the fairy planet is getting more and more congested. The taxi business is not so good. Maybe I should consider doing business in the Sky River Empire. I heard that it is even more prosperous than Andromeda. The passenger next to him said, I just came back from the Sky River Empire, but most of the places there are not as good as Andromeda. The most prosperous place is still Lin Zhan's Sun Ridge. Sigh. Andromeda doesn't have such a powerful martial artist. John sighed. Why is the sky getting dark? Chapter 839. At this time, no matter what they were doing, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at the opening in the sky. In the dark and deep sky, the wormhole was like a terrifying mouth, exuding an aura that did not belong to the new territories. Whoosh whoosh. A figure appeared in the sky. A few sturdy people with cold expressions walked out of the wormhole. These people's clothes looked a little strange. They looked like mercenaries, but they did not look like people from the new territories. Among these people, even the weakest one was in the immortal realm. One of the tall men was the leader. He was at the peak of the three-flower realm. He walked out of the wormhole and looked down. He reached out and gently fanned the tip of his nose. The smell of the new territories is really hard to accept. Oh, look at the air. It's so turbid. The damn industrial smell is everywhere. This environment can't even compare to the toilets in our hometown. No wonder no one in the immortal realm can be born. Beside him, a man in a tight suit said, Boss Westland, the new world is like this. The atmosphere for cultivation is not so strong, and the spiritual energy between heaven and earth is very thin. The development of technology is not bad, but it limits people's pursuit of their own limits. It's putting the cart before the horse. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people who want to leave through the divine gate. They're just a bunch of ignorant natives. Looking at them dirties my eyes. After Westland finished speaking, he looked at his companions behind him. Everyone's here. Everyone's here. There are 12 people in our mercenary group. Everyone's here. Then get ready to move. This time, the employer provided us with wormhole eggs and a large sum of money, but the mission is very easy. We can't mess this up. Boss, do you think the employer has too much money to spend? He gave us such a large sum of money and asked us to catch a few people who are at most realm kings. Is there something wrong with his brain? Idiot. What do you know? Do you know who we're going to catch? That's Lin Zhan's family. Lin Zhan is doing well in the Fallen Star Lake now. When he graduates from the Holy Land, he'll be a great god in the Yuan realm. The repercussions of catching his family are not small. Do you think it's easy? His subordinate was stunned by the reprimand. Then what should we do? Why don't we retreat? Westland laughed coldly. Why should we retreat? It's not that easy for Lin Zhan to grow. Naturally, there will be people to deal with him. Furthermore, we'll return to the primordial realm after capturing him. No matter how capable Lin Zhan is, he won't be able to find us. Since we're already in the new territories, how can we not have some fun? His subordinate's eyes lit up. That's right. The few of us are the strongest in the new territories, right? Then we should enjoy ourselves and let these country bumpkins experience the power of some primordial realm experts. I'm going to set up an arena here and purposely attract the experts of the new territories to challenge me. Then, I'll make them lose everything they've won. Ha ha ha. I'm going to pick up girls. Wherever I see a pretty girl, I'll snatch her away. I can't do whatever I want in the primordial realm, but I can do whatever I want in the new territories. Whoever dares to stop me, I'll kill him. I'm going to be an emperor. I'll find the emperor of a country and kill him. I'll play in his position for a few days and control the life and death of billions of people. This is also a rare experience. Looking at these mercenaries who were about to lose control, Westland knew that these guys were going to cause a ruckus. However, it didn't matter. In places like the new territories, they could do whatever they wanted. They had absolute power, so they wouldn't care about anyone. Go and have fun. But remember, there are a few places that you can't touch. For example, the branch of the Dimensional Universe Corporation, the branch of the First Bank of the Universe, and the branch of the Arena. These places are all giant enterprises and definitely have connections with the primordial realm. As long as you don't touch them, you can do whatever you want in other places. Oh, thank you, boss. You're really giving us a holiday? You're really generous. Westland laughed. Of course, I'm a generous boss. One of his subordinates said, What about you, boss? What do you want to do? I'm not as playful as you guys. I still have important things to do. I'm worried that Lin Zhen's family will be very vigilant. I'm letting you guys go and have fun so that you guys can attract the attention of the public and think that we're just a bunch of Hua young masters from the primordial realm. As for me, I'll go there quietly. Understood, boss. You deliberately didn't go directly to Lin Zhen's hometown because you don't want them to be vigilant, right? Of course, as a leader, I've already done my homework before coming here. Lin Zhen's hometown has very good defense facilities. If you want to go there without being discovered, you have to have a proper identity and not alert others. This Andromeda Nebula is the nebula closest to the Milky Way, but it's still an extraterrestrial star system. Why would his family care too much about an extraterrestrial star system? Brilliant, boss. A few mercenaries gave him a thumbs up. A mercenary said, "In that case, boss, I'll take my leave first. This is a Hua world. I'm going to have a good time." Westland looked into the distance. "I'm afraid you'll have to wait a while. There's a little trouble here." A few mercenaries followed Westland's gaze and saw a group of military flying saucers rapidly approaching. What an ancient and stupid machine. This thing is as slow as a snail and looks like a living coffin. How can it be used for battle? While they were talking, the fairy planet's military had already taken action. Hundreds of flying saucers surrounded them, and some anti-aircraft fire on the ground quietly aimed at them. People in front, listen up. This is the capital of the Andromeda Nebula, the fairy planet. Please state your identity, state your intentions, and accept our investigation. Otherwise, we'll treat your actions as provocation and deal with you resolutely. I repeat, people in front, listen up. What a bunch of annoying flies. An immortal realm mercenary frowned and waved a long sword in his hand. A ray of sword light pierced through the air and turned the military flying saucer into scrap metal. The flying saucer burst into flames and fell from the sky. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. Prepare to fire. Before the flying saucers could fire, the 10 mercenaries rushed out and slaughtered the hundreds of flying saucers in the air like they were chopping up vegetables. The enemy's rampant actions caused chaos on the ground. People fled in all directions in panic. Where are the high-level warriors? The military can't deal with these people. Hundreds of warriors rose into the sky from all over the fairy planet. They were all local experts who usually stayed on the fairy planet. When there was a threat, they would often appear. One of the level 9 region kings rushed to the front. However, when he saw these people, he immediately gasped. He had participated in the Heavenly Gate Challenge in the past, but he hadn't succeeded. However, he had seen the Heavenly Gate Guardian Yu Zhiyue suppress Ku Xianglong. Back then, Yu Zhiyue's understated strength had been deeply engraved in his bones. The people in front of him had the same characteristics as Yu Zhiyue. They were definitely warriors from the primordial realm and above. In the new territories where realm kings were top experts, immortal realm warriors were definitely godlike existences. Furthermore, there were more than 10 of them here. If these people went berserk, the fairy planet could very well be turned into ruins. Hurry up and inform His Majesty. The domain monarch immediately sent someone to inform the emperor. Then, he walked over personally and bowed respectfully. Greetings, seniors. You must be from the primordial realm. At least one of you has a good eye. Little fellow, tell us where this place is. The domain monarch suppressed his emotions. Seniors, this is the great nebula of Andromeda. May I know where your destination is? Perhaps I can give you some guidance. We are here to have fun, but now I want to meet your emperor. Can you lead the way? The domain monarch groaned inwardly, but he didn't dare say no. Westland waved his hand at the mercenaries behind him. Go out and have fun. Remember to pay attention to your own dimensional universe. When I need you, you must return immediately. The mercenaries agreed and immediately scattered like birds and beasts. When he saw them leave, the domain monarch was slightly relieved. He led Westland to the fairy planet's palace. Westland quickly met the emperor. Little fellow, I'll give you a chance. Arrange for someone to send me to the Milky Way, Lin Zhen's hometown. If you do this well, I can take you to the primordial realm when I leave and give you a chance to live forever. The fairy planet's emperor was also someone who had broken through the heavenly gate, but he had failed. He had thought that he would spend his life in the new territories until he died. He hadn't expected such a turn of events and such an opportunity. He was ecstatic. Thank you for your help, Senior. The best way to go to the Sun Territory is under the name of a caravan. You can set off with the caravan. This way, you can smoothly pass through the Sun Territory surveillance system and approach Lin Jun's hometown, Earth. Okay, I'll leave these matters to you. Do it as soon as possible. Soon, the fairy planet's emperor arranged for Westland to be part of a caravan. They set off from the fairy planet and headed to Lin Jun's hometown, the Sun Territory. This matter caused a commotion in the dimensional universe for a while, but as Westland had said, it didn't attract much attention. Over the years, people from the primordial realm had come to the new territories. Some people couldn't survive in the primordial realm and came to the new territories after cultivating to the immortal realm. They chose to become local tyrants in the new territories. Although the new territories were not as good as the primordial realm, at least they were safe and not threatened. There were only some reports in the dimensional universe that a group of people from the primordial realm had visited the fairy planet and had some friction with the military. Soon, they misunderstood Bangshire Union. However, some crazy people who wanted to go to the primordial realm took the initiative to contact these visitors, hoping that they could take them with them when they left. Chapter 840. The Sun Territory is now a country within the Sky River Empire. Since the Sun Overlord Lin Jun ascended to the Yuan realm as the #1 nebula stage expert in the new territories, the Sun Territory has become the most popular tourist destination in the new territories. People want to see what kind of outstanding person this place is that gave birth to the #1 nebula stage expert. The Yuan realm and the new territories are not completely isolated from each other. Occasionally, when people from the Yuan realm come, they will bring news about the Yuan realm. The famous people in the new territories have not completely disappeared from people's sight. It is said that Lin Jun is also doing very well in the Yuan realm, repeatedly shocking the world. Every time there is news about Lin Jun, it will make the headlines in the new territories and become the focus of people's attention. There is an endless stream of tourist teams from all over the new territories, and the commercial atmosphere in the Sun Territory is also very strong. Earth, metal, wood, water, fire, and Earth, these 6 planets are now habitable planets, plus the Moon, Titan, Jupiter, and other satellites, forming a unique ecological zone in the Sun Territory. According to statistics, the permanent population of the 6 planets is about 40 billion, but the floating population of the entire Sun Territory is as high as 300 billion. During this period, plans to develop Uranus and Neptune have been put on the agenda to alleviate the growing population pressure. Although the other planets are very crowded, as Lin Jun's hometown, Earth, the population pressure is not so great. Earth has strict regulations. There is a quota for the number of tourists accepted every day. If the number exceeds the quota, they will never be accepted, so as not to disturb the ecological environment of Earth. East Ice City, Bay City, Sky City. In the garden, 2 beautiful women were talking. Sister and Ning, do you also feel the bottleneck? In a moon-white dress, the fairy-like Su Mingwe gently held in Ning's hand as the two sat on a swing, swaying gently. As Lin Jun's wives, the two have been together for thousands of years, and their relationship is closer than mortal relatives. I can feel it. It's been a few years. I can feel that my astral power is overflowing, but there's always an invisible barrier preventing me from breaking through. No matter how hard I try, I can't take another step forward. Me too. This might be the so-called restriction of the new territories. No matter who it is, they can only cultivate to the peak World King realm in the new territories. It is simply impossible for them to achieve immortality. It's not just you and me. Even the angel sisters, Ling, and the others are the same. They've all stopped at the peak World King realm, unable to advance any further. And Ning suddenly smiled and said, Mom and Dad are both realm kings now. Every day, they ask why Lin Jun hasn't come back to pick them up. As she spoke, she asked Su Mingwe, didn't you and Lin Jun sense something? Have you ever sensed his condition? Was he in danger? Su Mingwe shook her head. I didn't feel that he was in any real danger. Sometimes I feel conflicted. I want to feel his existence, but I also worry that he's in danger. I don't want to feel his existence. And Ning nodded in agreement. That's right. I'd rather wait like this for a long time until the day he returns. Even if it's 1,000 years or 3,000 years, I don't want any accidents to happen. The two beauties were silent for a moment, lost in their thoughts of their husband. Madams, the young master and young miss have returned. The fairy girl Ling walked over and said, Ah, didn't they go out to travel? They're back? Yes. It said that the young master and young miss have also encountered a bottleneck. There's no meaning in cultivating anymore, so they came back to accompany their family. And Ning and Su Mingwei were very happy. They hadn't seen their children for a long time. Laughter and laughter came from outside the door. The two brothers, Lin Ping and Linen, walked in with their little sister, Mayor Lin. Mom. The children ran over and hugged their mothers happily. Not bad. Your spirits are very good. You've all reached the peak of the World King realm. If you can go to the primordial realm, the day of your breakthrough won't be far away. Mayor Lin held Su Mingyue's arm. Mom, why hasn't Dad come and pick me up yet? I'm really tired of staying in the new territories. It's better to go to the primordial realm. Su Mingyue smiled and said, Didn't your dad say before he left that he would only pick us up after ensuring that we're safe in the primordial realm? Otherwise, what if we drag your dad down? But Dad is already very powerful, Mayor Lin said, and took out a treasured newspaper. Look, this newspaper was brought over from the primordial realm. I found this news in it. Cough, cough. Mayor Lin straightened her expression and read aloud. First place on the star of divine punishment, Lin Zhan, has created another miracle. He has broken through 7 floors of Sky Split Tower and defeated a divine, transformation realm guardian. He has become the first place of the 4 great holy lands' new disciples. Speaking to here, Lin Mei continued, I don't even know what level the divine transformation is, but I'm sure it's much more powerful than a world king. If Dad can defeat such a master, can't he guarantee our safety? There's always someone better than you. Your dad hasn't come back yet, so there must be a reason why he can't come back. Sister, you should wait a little longer. Lin Ping comforted his sister. Lin Ping and Lin didn't spend much time at home these years. They spent most of their time traveling around the new territories and encountered many dangers. However, they were able to overcome them all in the end. Their strength was definitely outstanding among the world kings. And Ning looked at her 2 sons. Have you both fully awakened your bloodlines? Yes, Mom. My little brother and I both awakened our bloodlines in the Galactic Beast Alliance. Both of us are variant Kirins with dual attributes of ice and fire. However, my main attribute is fire and my little brother's is ice. You both inherited your father's talent and awakened your bloodline. Even if you face an ordinary longevity, you'll have the strength to fight. Su Mingwei looked at her daughter. Didn't you also awaken your bloodline? Why haven't you mentioned it before? No. Turning into a Kirin is ugly. I'd rather stay like this. Mayor Lin pulled on Su Mingyue's hand and acted like a spoiled child. She refused to turn into a Kirin no matter what. The family didn't know what to do with this youngest girl, even though she wasn't that young anymore. Ha ha. If my granddaughter doesn't want to change, then she won't change. We have enough masters in our family. We don't need one more. Lin Lie and Li Qin walked over. When they heard that their grandson and granddaughter had returned, they immediately rushed back to reunite with the family. Lin Lie and Li Qin had also entered the World King realm. They were 5th and 3rd level World Kings, respectively. However, their strength was much worse. Every time they broke through, they barely managed to do so. They hadn't experienced any actual combat and were considered the weakest of the World Kings. However, they didn't care about this at all. The 2 elders were very open-minded. It was enough for them to be able to see their family live happily. They had already profited by living these years. They didn't want to fight with others. The reason they lived for a few more years was to accompany their family for a few more years. Today, I won 20,000 yuan from playing cards. I'll treat everyone to a big meal. Lin Lie waved his hand grandly. The family couldn't help but laugh. As the family of the Sun Overlord, their family conditions couldn't be better. 20,000 yuan wasn't even a drop in the ocean. But since the old man was happy, everyone was happy to cooperate with him. Just as the family was preparing to go out for a meal, the electronic screen in the garden suddenly lit up. On the other side of the screen was the captain of the guards, someone who was incomparably loyal to Lin Jun. Master, Madam, young madams, a merchant ship from the Andromeda Nebula just entered the Sun territory. Their target is the African continent. Their reason is to deliver artificial weather control systems. However, this order is 3 months ahead of schedule. According to our investigation, the African continent doesn't urgently need this system. Also, according to our investigation, one of the passengers' star power status is somewhat vague. And Ning was surprised. Are you sure? Yes. According to the young madam's instructions, our interstellar radar scanning system is the newest in the entire new territories. It no longer pays attention to a martial artist's surface realm, but instead scans their total star power. However, the result of this person's scan exceeded the radar's scanning limit. Exceeded the limit? There's actually such a thing. And Ning and Su Mingwei immediately became vigilant. Su Mingwei was also an intelligent person. She pondered for a moment. If I remember correctly, a few days ago, there was a group of people from the primordial realm in the Andromeda constellation. That's right. I also heard that this ship came from the Andromeda constellation. It arrived early, and someone whose star power exceeded the limit. Their target is Earth. You err. I have a bad feeling. The whole family's expression became serious. As Lin Jun's family, they knew that there were people from the primordial realm who wanted to deal with Lin Jun. However, Lin Jun was not easy to deal with. He might even make an issue out of them. They could not be a burden to Lin Jun. Usually, they could put aside other things, but they had practiced escaping at the last minute more than once. Lin Liev valued safety the most. He waved his hand. Everyone, don't go out to eat first. Immediately board the Eternity Crystal Battleship to observe. If anything happens, immediately enter the parallel universe. We must not let the other party catch us. Lin Liev's decisiveness played a very big role. It allowed Lin Jun's family to avoid the fate of direct destruction. Just as they boarded the battleship, a shrill air defense alarm sounded. The alarm only sounded for a moment before it stopped. This was because the other party had directly teleported into Sky City. They had entered the back garden of Lin Jun's house. The hidden defensive firepower in the back garden was activated immediately. Countless fierce cannon fire bombarded the area. The person who came was Westlin. The 3 flowers of essence, chi, and spirit bloomed above his head, isolating him from all the cannon fire. Ha ha ha. This is Lin Jun's house. This kind of crude defense is really laughable. Everyone stop. A fist containing a huge amount of star power smashed into the ground. All the defense systems were completely destroyed. The destruction of the defense system triggered a high-density fuel-air bomb underground. It emitted a huge mushroom cloud and enveloped Westlin within it. This fuel-air bomb was the final defense of Lin Jun's house. It was used to deal with enemies that could not be resisted. Even though Westlin was in the 3-flower realm, he was still covered in dust and dirt from this fuel-air bomb. He was injured internally. Taking advantage of this explosion, the Eternity Crystal Battleship rose into the air and quickly left. Chapter 841. Everyone hold on tight. The battleship is accelerating and is leaving the atmosphere. The person behind us is catching up. Oh my God, he's so fast. We have to enter the parallel universe quickly. Prepare the moonrail cannon. No. Use laser weapons to intercept. Launch the battle fortress missiles. Try to buy some time. The Eternity Crystal Battleship escaped quickly, but the pursuer wasn't left behind. Through the battleship's radar, and Ning and the others could even see the face of the pursuer. 3 flowers bloomed on top of this person's head, which could block most of the attacks for him. Modern war weapons seemed so powerless in front of him. And Ning turned back and said to the Lin Ping brothers, "This is probably the 3-flower realm. The 3-flower realm is the realm above the immortal stage. We must not act rashly, especially you two. Lin Ping and Lin, and don't try to be brave, okay? Lin Ping and Lin and clenched their fists and stared at the pursuer on the screen. The man had a sneer on his face like a cat playing with a mouse. It seemed that Lin Zhen's family couldn't escape from his hands. He was just playing with them. The brothers Lin Ping and Lin and were definitely the best among their peers. It wasn't that they hadn't seen experts before. During their travels in the new territories, the two brothers once met an immortal stage expert from the primordial realm. This immortal stage expert thought that he could do whatever he wanted in the new territories. He acted unscrupulously and bullied the weak. When the two brothers met him, they had a fight. The two brothers joined forces. After a bitter 5-hour battle, they actually killed the immortal stage expert. After that, the two brothers became more confident in their own strength. However, Ning knew that the immortal stage and the three-flower realm were two different concepts. Not to mention, the pursuer had 3 flowers on his head, which meant that he was at the peak of the three-flower realm. A battle between a world king and a three-flower realm expert was no different from courting death. Not everyone in the world was like Lin Zhen. Oh my god, how can this person be so fast? He can actually move at the speed of light. We can't shake him off. He's attacking the battleship. We can't accelerate into the parallel universe. The cultivators behind him chased after him, shooting out streams of light from their hands from time to time. These streams of light bombarded the Eternity Crystal battleship, causing it to constantly shake. Every time the battleship was about to accelerate to the speed of light, it would be attacked, and its speed would slow down again. This way, the battleship would never be able to enter the parallel universe, and flying outside the parallel universe would be impossible to shake off the opponent. The battleship flew within the Sun territory with a person chasing after it. The Eternal Crystal battleship's protective shield was constantly bombarded, and the light became dimmer. In order to fight against the enemies from the primordial realm, the warship had been modified many times. The energy it contained was extremely powerful, which was why it could withstand the repeated attacks of the three-flower cultivators. We need to come up with an escape route. If this continues, we won't be able to escape sooner or later. Go to Mars through the wormhole. After passing through the wormhole, go to the Sagittarius constellation and go to the front of the Heavenly Gate. That's the place in the new territories closest to the primordial realm. I want to try telepathy with Lin Zhen and see if it works there. This was the only way Su Mingyue could think of. She and Lin Zhen had the twin star crystal in their bodies. In the past, when they were in the new territories, they could often sense each other. However, after Lin Zhen came to the primordial realm, this connection disappeared. Sometimes, Su Mingyue would think that if she could get closer to Lin Zhen, there might be a possibility that they could sense each other. In the entire new territories, the place closest to the primordial realm was the Sagittarius constellation's Heavenly Gate. Now is not the time for the Heavenly Gate to open, but this was the only way she could think of. After hearing Su Mingyue's words, everyone in the Lin family nodded. This was the only way to contact Lin Zhen. Otherwise, the entire family might not be able to get through this ordeal. However, there was a crucial problem at hand, which was how to shake off the other party's pursuit and pass through the wormhole to reach the Sagittarius constellation. If they did not shake off the other party and brought him to Mars, it was very likely that they would cause great suffering. This was something they absolutely could not allow. No matter how they maneuvered the warship, they could not shake off the other party. The Lin family members in the warship were in despair. Westlin was flying in the void behind them, his heart filled with a sense of carefreeness. In the new territories, whether it was flying or teleporting, it was much, much faster than in the primordial realm. He could actually reach the limit of sublight speed here, which was unimaginable in the primordial realm. Moreover, his teleportation could reach tens of thousands of kilometers in an instant, which was also impossible in the primordial realm. In his opinion, the Lin family's warship flying in front was just a last-ditch struggle. As long as he broke the warship's protective shield, the Lin family members would have to surrender. Lin Zhen, don't blame me. The person who wants to deal with you is Sage Master Qiantong. I'm just a mercenary doing my job. You can only blame yourself for not protecting your family members well. With a thought, Westland teleported directly to the top of the eternal crystal warship. He stepped on the energy shield, held a long sword in his hand, and kept attacking the shield. With him harassing here, the eternal crystal warship could not accelerate into the parallel universe. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. Mom, don't worry about the two of us. How did Dad fight back then? How did he risk his life to defeat strong enemies who were far stronger than him? As his sons, we can't perform too badly. Yes, if we retreat now, when we reach the primordial realm in the future, Dad will ask us, as the two men in the family, did you protect the women in the family well? We won't be able to face Dad. Lin Ping and Linen both said goodbye to their families. Lin Lie, Li Qin, and Ning, Su Mingwei, Mayor Lin, Ling Er, and Angel did not try to persuade them anymore. And Ning hugged Su Mingwei and cried uncontrollably. Now, someone had to stand up against the enemies outside, but it could not be a woman, because that might be sending a lamb to the tiger's den. No one could accept the humiliation that Lin Zhan would suffer. Since Lin Lie's strength was not up to par, Lin Ping and Lin could not take it anymore and took the initiative to fight. Seeing that her two sons were about to leave, and that they might never return, as a mother, and Ning was heartbroken. The warship's cabin door opened, and Lin Ping and Lin went to fight. Even through the warship, they could hear the fierce battle outside. The two children roared angrily, and Westland laughed loudly. The battle had entered a life and death situation at the first moment. The shield that was about to run out of energy suddenly stopped. Lin Ping and the others succeeded. The warship could finally accelerate to light speed and enter the parallel universe. Before the warship accelerated, Ning seemed to see her two sons defeated and fainted. Lin Lie controlled the warship and forced it to accelerate. As a grandfather, how could he not feel sorry for his two grandsons? If he was the only one in the warship, he would give the enemy a blow even if he had to self-destruct, but he could not. There was a whole family here. The warship passed through the parallel universe and arrived on Mars. It rushed down through the wormhole in Mount Olympus. It rushed out of the wormhole and accelerated into the parallel universe again, heading straight for the Sagittarius constellation. Mom, we have to avenge our brothers. Mayor Lin's eyes were red. She was heartbroken. Su Mingwei held Mei Er's hand. Don't worry, we'll avenge them. But don't be discouraged. The enemy's goal here is not necessarily to kill us, because killing us will not benefit them at all. Their goal is most likely to capture us and use our safety to threaten your father. And Ning recovered quickly. Hearing Su Mingwei's words, she could not help but nod. That's right. Killing us will only anger Lin Zhan. Only by capturing us alive can Lin Zhan's mind be disturbed. This means that Ping, and Dinner might not be dead yet. That definitely won't be dead, definitely won't be. As everyone prayed, the warship finally arrived at the wine-red nebula of the Sagittarius constellation after flying for a day and a night. When the heavenly gates opened, there were countless people here. But now it was empty. There was not a single person here. The Eternal Crystal warship stopped. The Lin family first used the radar to scan the area, but they did not find anyone nearby. Su Mingwei said to Lin Lie and the others, Dad, Mom, wait on the spaceship. Find the best place to speed up and leave. If there's a change in the situation, immediately take the ship and leave. No, we won't run anymore. If there's still no hope this time, we'll fight it out with the enemy. Go quickly. No one knows our route. No one will chase after us. Mom, be careful. Su Mingwei nodded slightly, turned around, and jumped off the spaceship. Then, she went straight in the direction of the heavenly gates. This place was often seen in the dimensional universe, but it was Su Mingwei's first time here. Looking up in front of the heavenly gates, the boundless dark energy in the sky formed a large wine-red nebula, floating in the air. Two huge pillars of life went straight into the universe. The heavenly gates were at least 1,000,000 kilometers away. Su Mingwei's star power surged, and she rose into the air. Although the heavenly gates were closed, the pressure of the heavenly gates was still there. Su Mingwei withstood the pressure and broke through the limit of 1,000,000 kilometers. This also proved that if Su Mingwe wanted to break through the heavenly gates now, she would definitely pass easily. But at the end, the primordial realm did not appear. The heavenly gates were still closed. Su Mingwe's body was suspended in the air. Her long hair danced in the wind. She scanned with her spirit power, but she could not feel anything at all. Thinking that she might not be able to contact Linjun, Su Mingwe was sad. 2 lines of tears flowed down her cheeks. "Hubby, where are you?" The usually dignified and elegant saintess let out a heart-wrenching scream. Chapter 842. As the Heavenly Gates Guardian, Zhue Yu's life was very boring. His strength had already reached a peak, and it was impossible for him to make any more breakthroughs. Every day, other than sleeping, he would find some games in the dimensional universe to play, watch the news, or read novels. He could monitor everything in the new territories from the Heavenly Gate, but he didn't want to pay attention to it. What did the life and death of the people in the new territories have to do with him? He didn't know anyone in the new territories. The only person he knew was Lin Jun, who had also passed through the Heavenly Gate and arrived in the primordial realm. And as the Heavenly Gates Guardian, Zhue Yu's duty determined that he couldn't interfere with the matters of the new territories. Just like on Earth, which was ruled by humans, humans couldn't forcefully use their strength to interfere with the life and death of the animal world. He didn't intend to break this rule, no matter how sensational things happened in the new territories. Until today, Zhue Yu had downloaded a novel on the internet called Turning into a Dragon When Encountering Wind and Clouds. The last sentence is the title of the book. Zhue Yu was reading it with great interest. Suddenly, he seemed to hear a woman's cry. Closing the dimensional universe, Zhue Yu saw Su Mingwe. He knew who this woman was. Lin Jun's wife. Hearing Su Mingwe's mournful cry, Zhue Yu's heart stirred. He probed for a bit and quickly learned the whole story. Zhue Yu's heart was very conflicted. He didn't know what he should do. Opening the Heavenly Gate and letting Su Mingwe find Lin Jun was definitely out of the question. His duty didn't allow him to do so. But he knew that no matter how this woman called, Lin Jun couldn't receive any information from Su Mingwe due to the barrier between the new territories and the primordial realm. It was useless even if she shouted herself hoarse. If it was someone else, Zhue Yu would definitely be indifferent. But Zhue Yu had a deep impression of Lin Jun, and the two could even be considered friends. Forget it. Lin Jun, I'll break the rules and help you once. As for the outcome, it'll depend on your fate. Zhue Yu inadvertently raised his hand, and the Heavenly Gate quietly opened a crack. Su Mingwe, who was already in despair, suddenly felt a different aura. The Sagittarius constellation was only in the star cloud region. There was nothing but stardust around, but this was a breath of life. It even had the fragrance of the earth, and it was different from any smell she had ever felt. That was the aura of the primordial realm. Although Su Mingwe had never been to the primordial realm, she was very sure of it. She didn't know why this happened, but since it happened, she couldn't miss it. Su Mingwe gently clasped her hands in front of her chest. At this moment, her thoughts spread out. "Hubby, I'm Yue. Hubby, save us, save us." This thought was formless, but it could pass through time and space and directly reach a person's heart. Veslin had already reached the edge of the Sagittarius constellation. Behind him, the mercenaries who had gone out to play had already arrived and were following behind him. "We're here. This is the Sagittarius constellation, the hope of the people of the new territories. If they can break through the Heavenly Gate here, they can reach the primordial realm. Otherwise, they can only waste their time in the new territories until they die." Lin Jun's family ran pretty fast. They actually managed to run here. But with their methods and strength, escaping from the primordial realm's pursuit is simply a dream. Since they've stopped, they won't be able to escape anymore. As Veslin spoke, he touched a wound on his cheek. "Lin Jun's little brat is pretty tenacious. He actually managed to hit me. Boss, don't bother about these small things. His family is full of beauties. Later, you'll get everything back, plus interest." Veslin revealed a cold smile, but he still didn't dare to touch the Lin family's women. However, at this point, Even if he didn't do anything, Lin Jun would probably not let him go when he found out in the future. Hurry up, let's end this quickly. We can't stay in the new territories any longer. I have a feeling that something unexpected is going to happen. Veslin led his subordinates and quickly rushed in the direction of the heavenly gate. In the Holy Land, Lin Jun was meditating with his eyes closed. In the past year of cultivation, his greatest improvement was in his mind power. After swallowing a mind power pill yesterday, his mind power had now reached the perfect diamond level. In his spiritual sea, his mind power had turned into a diamond-like state. The divine infant was in a diamond, just like a baby in a stone. Holding a diamond spear in his arms, the divine infant had a hint of murderous aura. I don't know what my chances of winning are if I challenge the 12th level Heavenly Lord in my current state. If my main body and avatar work together, I might still be a little short. There are still 2 months before the grand tournament of the Holy Land. At that time, I'll have to fight with the older students. There will be many divine transformation experts among them. I wonder what kind of ranking I'll get. Just as his thoughts were running wild, Lin Jun suddenly felt a throbbing in his heart. This feeling. Lin Jun opened his eyes abruptly. He had almost forgotten about this feeling, but he had never forgotten it. This was because he felt that Yu Er was in danger, or that her emotions were fluctuating violently. Ever since he came to the primordial realm, this feeling had completely disappeared. After being in the primordial realm for close to 100 years, this feeling had become somewhat blurry. However, it suddenly awakened today, and Lin Jun was scared out his wits. Yu Er was in danger. His family was in danger. He stood up without hesitation and closed his eyes. He used his senses to search for the direction of the fluctuation in his emotions. I'm sure. She's over there, somewhere very far away. Some fragments flashed in his mind. It was a blurry burgundy color. Could it be at the location of the new territory's heavenly gate? How did Yu Er go there? Lin Jun did not care about anything else. He immediately searched for the coordinates of the star chart in the dimensional universe, looking for the location of the heavenly gate. If he wanted to go to the new territories through the wormhole egg, he would have to go through the coordinates in advance. Soon, Lin Jun determined the coordinates of the new territory's heavenly gate. Fifth senior brother, I have something urgent to attend to. I'll have to leave. Lin Jun greeted. Jean Nua could sense Lin Jun's eagerness and immediately replied, Come back quickly. Lin Jun raised his hand and took out a wormhole egg. Lin Jun bought 5 of these things. When he used them, he just had to open one and enter the coordinates. The wormhole egg would send him directly to the place he wanted to go. The wormhole egg opened, and a spatial crack appeared. Then a wormhole grew bigger and bigger. Lin Jun stood in front of the wormhole. When the wormhole stabilized, he immediately rushed in. The wormhole passed through very quickly. In less than a minute, the wine-red nebula was right in front of him. After leaving the new territories for 100 years, Lin Jun had finally returned. Using a wormhole egg in the Holy Land would naturally alarm many people. However, seeing that it was Lin Jun who used it, no one said anything. Lin Jun's position in the Holy Land was very high now. Everyone could see that the 5th young Master Jean Nua was taking care of him. People already had guesses in their hearts that Lin Jun was probably the successor that Jean Nua was grooming. Perhaps, after millions of years, Lin Jun would replace Jean Nua as the new guard. Therefore, although he was a heaven-class student, no one dared to treat him as an ordinary student. Not to mention that he used a wormhole egg to come here, even if he moved a piece of the stone tablet away. As long as Jean Nua did not say anything, no one would say anything. Only at the foot of the Holy Land Mountain, the saint-level alchemist Qian Tong watched as Lin Jun used a wormhole egg to leave. What's going on? Why did Lin Jun suddenly use a wormhole egg? Looking at the size of this wormhole egg, it's definitely not teleporting inside the primordial realm. He's heading to the new territories. Did Wei Silon and that bunch of idiots screw it up? No, if that's the case, if Lin Jun returns, they'll be done for. At that time, those guys will not hesitate to tell me what happened. Qian Tong walked back to the alchemy room. After thinking for a while, he felt that he could not just wait for death. Lin Jun was not on good terms with him. If something happened to his family this time, he would definitely come back to take revenge. He would not care about his identity as a saint-level alchemist. However, Qian Tong was not very afraid of Lin Jun. As a saint-level alchemist, Qian Tong's advancement had never been a big problem. With the support of saint-level pills, Qian Tong had actually reached the spiritual transformation stage 3 years ago. However, he had always kept a low profile, so not many people knew about it. He was afraid that the fifth young master Jin Nuo would interfere in this matter. If Jin Nuo supported Lin Jun, Qian Tong would have no choice but to surrender. I need to find some people to support me. No matter what, I am the only known saint-level alchemist on the continent. There are many people who need saint-level pills. The Fallen Star Lake Holy Land cannot execute me. I absolutely cannot die. I can provide an endless supply of saint-level pills. This is my protective talisman. If Lin Jun insists, then I'll have to settle the grudge between us myself. Jin Nuo can't forcefully interfere in this matter. I believe that Lin Jun, that arrogant brat, won't use Jin Nuo to get rid of me. This is my chance. As a saint-level alchemist, Qian Tong knew many big shots. Even if they were big shots, they still needed saint-level pills. Qian Tong believed that this was his only hope of survival. Opening the dimensional universe, Qian Tong first found a demigod powerhouse he had met many years ago. For the face of a demigod powerhouse, even Jin Nuo should consider it. Let's find him first. Wei Xilan and the others finally rushed to the heavenly gate. They saw the Eternity Crystal battleship. Ha ha! Are you planning to give up? At least you have some foresight. At this time, if you still stubbornly resist, continuing to struggle will only bring unnecessary losses and harm. The group of mercenaries laughed and surrounded the Eternity Crystal battleship. Chapter 843. Westland watched as Lin Jun's family left the battleship. His eyes darted back and forth. 1, 2, 3. Why is there one person missing? Where's Su Mingwei? Lin Lie didn't answer his question. Instead, he stepped forward and asked, "Where are my 2 grandsons?" He. You're really ignorant. You can't even protect yourself, yet you're still thinking about your grandsons. If you really want to know, I'll let you all reunite with your 2 grandsons. In your dreams, Lin Lie angrily rebuked. Don't fail to appreciate my kindness. The situation is beyond your control. Now that we've completely crushed you, you can't resist. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for being impolite. Westland's face turned cold. He turned to the mercenaries behind him and said, "Brothers, attack. But be careful. These delicate beauties are only kais. Don't accidentally kill them. Otherwise, it won't be fun." "Boss, we've already offended Lin Jun by accepting this deal. Since that's the case, it doesn't matter what we do. Today, I'll have a taste of their beauties." An immortal stage mercenary rushed over. His target was Ning. Ning was worried about her 2 children at this time. When she saw someone rushing over, she immediately became angry. When the mercenary rushed over, she didn't dodge. Instead, she drew her sword to meet the attack. Beside Ning, the angel sisters attacked at the same time. The women of Lin Jun's family were also fierce. The 3 kais joined forces and quickly exchanged blows with the immortal stage mercenary. The 3 women retreated at the same time, their faces pale. As for the immortal stage mercenary, there was a sword in his chest. Ning's sword had pierced through his chest. The angel sisters supported Ning. This short exchange was extremely dangerous. Ning went all out. The mercenary wasn't prepared and was restrained by the angel sisters. He lost his life. The immortal stage expert fell to the ground, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Westland froze for a moment. Then, anger appeared on his face. "I gave you face, but you don't want it." Everyone attacked together. The 11 of them rushed over together. The Lin family members gathered together. They knew that they weren't a match for them. But even if they died, they wouldn't let the enemy capture them. Above the divine gate, Su Mingwei opened her eyes. She looked at the wormhole in front of her in disbelief. In the wormhole, her husband, whom she had not seen for 100 years, walked out in a rosy glow. It was the light from the primordial realm. Coming to the gate of heaven was already a last resort. Su Mingwei really couldn't think of any other way, but she didn't expect her husband to really come back. He heard her call. Lin Jun. Su Mingyue's lips moved as tears blurred her eyes. Lin Jun stepped out of the wormhole and grabbed Su Mingwei. "You are what's going on?" "There's an enemy below." Lin Jun's spiritual power swept across, and the scene below the divine gate was clear at a glance. He took Su Mingwei into his inner world and teleported directly to the battlefield below. Westlin wielded his long sword and knocked the weapon out of Ling Er's hand. In all fairness, the Lin family members were considered strong among the world kings, but they weren't strong enough to defy the heavens. They could defeat Changsheng if they joined forces, but they were definitely no match for a three-flower realm cultivator. With Westlin's strength, he was basically invincible in the new territories. Just as he was about to capture Ling Er, who was about to lose her ability to resist, he suddenly felt a chill coming from above his head. Oh no! Westlin, who had been licking his wounds all year round, immediately realized that something was wrong. He was very alert to danger. Above his head, there was a monstrous killing intent coming at him. How could he not feel it? Without any superfluous actions, Westlin immediately released another wormhole egg. There was no one else besides Lin Jun who could have such a strong killing intent and such powerful strength. It was obvious that Lin Jun had received the news and returned. This mission was over. Westlin opened the wormhole, and with a thought, two figures flew out of his inner world. They were the brothers Lin Ping and Lin and whom he had captured. Before he came, he had made an agreement with Qian Tong. If he captured the Lin family members, he had to find a chance to send them back. He had also set the coordinates long ago. It was Qian Tong's alchemy room. As long as Lin Ping and Lin had successfully passed through the wormhole, they would directly fall into Qian Tong's hands. At that time, with his two sons in Qian Tong's hands, Lin Jun would definitely not be able to do as he pleased. After throwing Lin Ping and Lin in, Westlin immediately followed into the wormhole. He didn't even have time to call his subordinates. With a single teleport, Lin Jun arrived on the battlefield. On the battlefield, the Lin family members were gathered together to resist, and Ning, Ling Er, the Angel Sisters, and his youngest daughter, Mei Lin, were the main resistance force. However, those immortal warriors surrounded them like cats playing with mice. They couldn't resist for long. Seeing Westlin's actions, Lin Jun's anger had already reached its limit. He looked at Westlin's wormhole and unleashed his heart sword. Wong. This was a powerful killing move even in the primordial realm. It was practically invincible in the new territories. A sword net cut through space, creating countless fine spatial cracks, and slashed fiercely at the wormhole. The spatial tunnel opened by the wormhole egg couldn't withstand Lin Jun's cold sword, and was cut in half from the middle. Before Westlin could return to the primordial realm, he was broken by this sword. Half of the tunnel lost its power, and Westlin's body fell out. Jiuling, I'll leave these lackeys to you. Lin Jun released the nine-headed lion. After Jiuling appeared, his huge body roared. The divine telekinesis transformed into a super galactic beast. The mercenaries who were only in the immortal realm almost peed their pants. The 10 mercenaries split up and fled. Jiuling swayed in the air, and 9 huge lion heads flew out. One by one, they bit 9 of them and directly bit them to death in the air, swallowing them one mouthful at a time. He grabbed the remaining one and threw him to the ground. Then he stomped on his head until it exploded. The mercenaries who were so powerful just now were all wiped out in an instant. Only Westlin spat out large mouthfuls of blood. He was injured by Lin Jun's cold sword aura. It looked like he wouldn't be able to survive. Lin Jun was about to raise his sword and kill him when a Ning suddenly shouted from behind. Lin Jun, Ping Er, and an heir have been captured by him. Lin Jun was stunned for a moment. He stopped killing, grabbed Westlin, and fed him a pill. Then, his bright eyes pierced into his soul. Solok, Westlin, who had one foot in the jaws of death, was forcibly pulled back by Lin Jun. Speak. Tell me everything you know. Westlin's soul was easily locked by Lin Jun, and he immediately spilled the beans like a bamboo tube. The one who wanted to use your family to threaten you is Qian Tong. He provided us with 2 wormhole eggs and allowed us to come to the new territories. He also gave our mercenary group 50 billion, so we accepted this deal. Lin Ping and Lin and didn't die because Qian Tong said he wanted to capture them alive. I made an agreement with him to send them back to him. Lin Jun's expression changed. You're saying that my 2 sons are now in Qian Tong's hands. If that was the case, then it was really dangerous. Qian Tong's methods were very vicious. As a saint-grade alchemist, he had many ways to control people. If Ping Air and an heir fell into his hands, they would suffer a fate worse than death. Even if Lin Jun returned immediately, Qian Tong might immediately kill him. However, Westlin shook his head. No, your sword strike just now destroyed the wormhole structure, causing the wormhole's coordinates to deviate greatly. At that time, Lin Ping and Lin were about to pass through, but their positions definitely changed. They should have gone somewhere else in the primordial realm. Give me the coordinates. I don't have the specific coordinates. At the last moment, the wormhole was destroyed by your sword chi, so the coordinates can no longer be determined. I can only give an approximate range, but the error could be millions or tens of millions of light years away. Where's the approximate range? Maybe it's over at the endless battlefield, but it's impossible to track them down. The endless battlefield is unimaginably large, and there are countless dangers inside. Tens of thousands of kilometers could be the difference between heaven and hell. Not to mention the difference is so great. It's not easy to find these 2 people. Then you could die first. Lin Jun sent out a mental attack, directly smashing Westlin's head into a rotten watermelon. Westlin's headless corpse fell to the ground, and Lin Jun once again released Su Mingwei. The Lin family finally gathered together, and Ning threw herself into Lin Jun's arms. Hubby, save our sons. As long as Ping, and Anna are still alive, there won't be a problem. I'm very familiar with the primordial realm, so I'll definitely be able to find them. You have to believe in their ability to survive. They're already at the peak of World King, and they'll quickly break through to the longevity realm in the primordial realm. Longevity realm is considered a powerhouse in the primordial realm, so there won't be a problem for them to survive. Lin Jun's comforting words were effective. The Lin family saw with their own eyes that the 2 children were still alive, and their hearts were mostly at ease. Moreover, Lin Ping and Lin had always liked to take risks. Even if they reached the primordial realm, there shouldn't be a problem. After Su Mingwei came out, she asked nervously, Hubby, will the 2 of them really be okay? Will they be in danger? Lin Jun thought for a moment. There shouldn't be a big problem. They might have reached a relatively complicated area, but I'll go look for them. You don't have to worry about anything. Although the Lin family was still a little nervous, they were relieved to know that the 2 of them were still alive. Moreover, now that Lin Jun was back, Lin Jun would naturally be in charge of everything. Lin Jun's heart was actually not at ease. The endless battlefield was the area where the primordial realm's surface and the endless star ocean's races fought. In that vast area that spanned tens of millions of light years, there were countless dangers. Moreover, no martial artist below the immortal stage could enter that place. Even a 3 Flower Realm martial artist would only be a small fry there. It was too dangerous for Lin Ping and Lin to go there. Chapter 844. Dad, Mom, don't worry about the family matters for now. Follow me back to the primordial realm. Lin Lia nodded slightly. Okay, actually, it doesn't matter if we're here or not. Everything in the Sun territory is on the right track. We're just decorations here. And Ning said to Lin Jun, Hubby, that person just mentioned Qian Tong. Is he the mastermind behind this? That's right, but you don't have to worry about these things. After returning to the primordial realm, just focus on cultivating. Leave everything else to me. The Lin family gradually relaxed. As long as Lin Jun was around, they didn't have to worry about anything. Lin Jun raised his hand and put away the Eternity Crystal battleship. Then, he took out a wormhole egg and checked the coordinates. The coordinates were set at Tianling, the base of the Fire Kirin. Okay, everyone get ready. Let's go to the primordial realm. The wormhole egg opened, and a spatial tunnel appeared again. Everyone got up and walked into the wormhole, following behind Lin Jun as they passed through the dark tunnel. When the light appeared in front of them, they had already arrived in a new world. The most important difference between the primordial realm and the new territories was the aura. The spiritual energy of the primordial realm was completely incomparable to that of the new territories. When everyone arrived here, they felt that the barrier in their bodies that was restricting their advancement had already loosened. Behind them, a towering hall that looked like it was carved out of rubies was extremely shocking. "Son, what is this place?" Li Qin asked. "Mom, this is the base of the fire Kirin in the primordial realm. Your son is the patriarch here. You're absolutely safe here." The appearance of the wormhole made the people of the fire Kirins come out to take a look. When they saw that Lin Jun had returned, they all greeted him. It had been 10 years, and the recruitment of new students in the Holy Land was about to begin. The people of the fire Kirins were still waiting for Lin Jun to recommend them. More and more fire Kirins came out to greet their patriarch. Lin Jun looked down and saw many unfamiliar faces. Over the years, the fire Qilin's strength had grown increasingly stronger. Many of the fire Qilins that were wandering outside had returned to the clan. Lin Jun also had too many people that he didn't know. At this moment, Li Qin suddenly pointed at a fire Qilin and said, "Why does he look like the puppy you raised back then?" Lin Jun stared blankly at the fire Qilin, and his eyes lit up. This new fire Qilin was actually Xiaowan. Xiaowan was also very happy to see Lin Jun, especially Lin Liye and Li Qin. She immediately jumped over excitedly. "Xiaowan, when did you arrive?" "Master, I've been in the Yuan realm for 70 years. Back then, I went to the other side of Heaven Ridge. Although I've heard a lot about you, I couldn't find you. It wasn't until I heard that you became the patriarch of the Fire Qilin a few years ago that I crossed Heaven Ridge and came here. I didn't expect to see you in less than 2 months." Lin Jun also patted Xiaowan's shoulder happily. After not seeing him for 100 years, this guy had already reached the immortal realm. Xiaowan had his own bloodline in her body. She was also considered a type of mutated fire Qilin. Her aptitude was very good. "Good. That's great. Since that's the case, then for this year's Sacred Land selection, you, Lin Chuang, and my family will all enter the selection of the Fallen Star Lake Sacred Land." Lin Jun was now a Heaven-class student and could recommend 8 people to enter the Sacred Land selection. Of course, he would be biased toward his own clan. Xiaowan, Lin Chuang, Su Mingwei, and Ning, the angel sisters Ling Er and Mei Er Lin. There were exactly 8 people. Fortunately, Lin Ping and Lin En weren't here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough spots. Looking at his own family, Lin Jun felt that their strength was still a little weak. Although Su Mingwei and Ning and the others were definitely the best among their peers, Lin Jun felt that it wasn't enough. Lin Jun secretly decided that he would give each of his family members a super godly body. Only then would they have the confidence to enter the Sacred Land selection. A super godly body was very expensive, 500 million for one. However, what Lin Jun didn't lack the most now was money. With 8 super godly bodies, for trillion was enough. He had 14 trillion in his hands. After introducing his family to the Fire Qilin, Lin Jun announced that his family would be living in the Palace of Fire from now on. Now, Lin Jun could be said to be able to control the Qilin clan with one hand. No one could raise any objections. The doors of the Palace of Fire opened, and the Lin family officially moved in. Lin Jun then called Lightning, Red Witch, and the other 4 spirits over. "The 4 of you must not only protect the Qilin clan in the future, but also protect my family. As long as these things are done well, I will get you a Saint Grade pill to help you break through." Lightning and the other 3's eyes lit up. Being able to break through to the divine will transformation was a great temptation for them. However, they didn't have the luck of Jiuling, so it wouldn't be easy for them to break through. A Saint Grade advancement pill was a shortcut for the 3-flower peak to break through to the divine will transformation. However, Saint Grade pills were too difficult to obtain. Even Xiantong would have a hard time refining one. Yet Lin Jun said that he could get one. However, the 4 of them didn't doubt anything Lin Jun said. They immediately patted their chests and promised that there would be no mistakes. Here, Lin Jun was very confident about the safety of his family. With the protection of the 4 spirits and 50 to 60,000 fire cheelans here, no one would dare to court death. The atmosphere in the fire palace was warm and the environment was beautiful. The Lin family didn't feel any discomfort when they moved in. After Lin Jun settled his family, he hesitated for a moment and didn't immediately tell them about Ning Qingxian. If it was any other time, it would be fine, but now that Lin Ping and Linen weren't here, everyone wasn't in a good mood. It was better to wait for a while. Fortunately, everyone's mood was relatively stable at the moment. It might have something to do with Lin Ping and Lin and often going out to train. After all, they weren't ordinary people. They were all cultivators, so they had a strong ability to accept dangerous environments. Therefore, a cultivator's family was destined not to be like an ordinary family, worrying about gains and losses over small matters. Moreover, after arriving in the primordial realm, they found that everyone was on the verge of breaking through. When Lin Jun first left the new territories, their realms were above Lin Jun's. After so many years, if it weren't for the new territories suppressing them, everyone might have broken through long ago. Therefore, after arriving here, the first thing Lin Jun did was to prepare pills and star crystals for them to help them break through. The first person to break through was Su Mingwe. With Lin Jun protecting her, breaking through wasn't a problem. Su Mingwe was also well prepared. She broke through from the peak of the World King realm to the peak of the 2nd level of the Longevity realm, almost reaching the 3rd level. Just as Su Mingwe broke through, and Ning also broke through. The effect was about the same as Su Mingwe's. After that, Ling the Angel Sisters, and Mei Lin all began breaking through, keeping Lin Jun busy for a while. Only Lin Liye and his wife's progress was slower. However, they weren't in a hurry. Everything would fall into place eventually. After staying in the Fire Palace for 3 days and waiting for everyone's realms to stabilize, Lin Jun prepared to leave. Dad, Mom, Ninger, you stay here and cultivate. Don't go anywhere. With the Fire Cheelan's people protecting you, you won't be in any danger. The primordial realm is different from the new territories. The competition for cultivation here is more intense and cruel. Increasing your own strength is the most important thing. Pinger and Ina are just wandering outside. I'll go look for them. As a man, some dangerous environments can actually help him train. You don't have to worry about this. I'll go back and get some things to strengthen you. Just wait for me here for a while. After bidding farewell to his family, Lin Jun left the Fire Kirin and went to the Qin capital. He wanted to get everyone a super divine body and equip them. It wasn't easy to buy a super divine body. First, it was too expensive. Second, it needed to be reserved in advance. However, before Lin Jun came to the Qin capital, he asked the Qin kingdom's emperor, Zhu Ziheng, to help him reserve one. When Zhu Ziheng heard that Lin Jun wanted to reserve 8 super divine bodies, he was shocked. He said to Lin Jun in the dimensional universe, "Brother, I can help you reserve one, but the royal family can't afford it." Haha, don't worry. You just need to reserve one for me as soon as possible. I'll pay for it myself. When he heard that Lin Jun would pay for it himself, Zhu Ziheng was relieved. As the Qin kingdom's emperor, he could reserve one for himself. He could also guarantee that it would be the fastest. If there was a place in the primordial realm where it was the most convenient to buy things, the Qin capital was definitely one of them. It was too difficult to buy a super divine body in other places, but it was still very convenient in the Qin kingdom. When Lin Jun arrived, the 8 super divine bodies were already prepared. Lin Jun had already explained the 8 divine bodies in advance. According to each person's characteristics, there would be different divine bodies. For example, Su Mingyue was born with a light element body. Lin Jun gave her a holy light divine body. And Ning was born with a water element body. Lin Jun gave her a water spirit divine body. For example, Ling was a fairy princess. Lin Jun gave her a natural divine body. For example, Mayer was a mutant fire Qilin. Lin Jun gave her a super fire divine body that was most suitable for mutant galactic beasts. After purchasing the divine bodies, Lin Jun spent a lot of money to buy spirit treasures. The spirit treasures weren't cheap. Each spirit treasure was worth at least 100 billion. Otherwise, the Greenleaf sect wouldn't have been the only one in the southern Liang Empire who had a spirit treasure, the Sky Slasher Sword. If one wanted to achieve something in the Holy Lands arena, spirit treasures were essential. Another 2 trillion was spent. The 8 spirit treasures were also prepared. Lin Jun also bought a lot of miscellaneous items that were more suitable for them. After being busy in the Qin capital for 3 days, Lin Jun returned with a full load. He sent these items back to the Fire Kirin. After everyone integrated with the super divine bodies, Lin Jun let out a sigh of relief. After these things were done, Lin Jun had more important things to do.